After the end of the World Martial Arts Tournament, Son Goku, Krillin, and Yamcha were going to start their training, while Ayaka and Launch were going to embark on their own journey. After returning to the lookout, Ayaka decided to tell Launch and others some messages about other planets. In a few years, the Earth would enter a period of severe tests, whether it was Demon King Piccolo or the later Z chapter. The enemies were more powerful one after another. As the Earth's Kami, Ayaka's pressure was still relatively high. So, the only thing she could do was to improve her strength constantly. As for some trivial matters, she still had to leave it to the old Kami and Mr. Popo to deal with. Of course, even if she wasn't the Kami of Earth, since she was reborn into the Dragon Ball world, power enhancement was a hurdle that couldn't be bypassed. Only by becoming strong could she live in style in this world. This day, Ayaka gathered the old Kami, Mr. Popo, and Launch to introduce them to the outer planet's information. Our strength is not bad, but if we talk about outside the Earth, even I am still weak. Ayaka said openly. Beyond Earth? Launch asked in surprise. Old Kami and Mr. Popo were also a little confused. They certainly didn't doubt the existence of aliens. After all, old Kami was an alien. What they were confused about was Ayaka's statement that even she was still frail. Ayaka's strength wasn't very public, but the old Kami and others still had a consensus that her strength was at least 10 times more than the old Kami. Even 100 times might not be impossible. Such a powerful person as the Earth's Kami had put the old Kami at ease. Well, Earth is just a weak planet among low-level planet. Compared to life on other planets, humans' power level is really not worth mentioning. Is there a specific reference for this? Mr. Popo asked, raising his hand. There is. Ayaka nodded. The common rule of the universe is to divide the rank of planets according to the numerical value of power level. Since this rule has a large consensus in the universe, it is relatively accurate. In the standard of division, the strongest power level below 1000 are low-level planets, between 1000 and 10,000 power level is the middle-level planets, and more than 10,000 power level is the high-level planets. To give an example, the specific reference standard is an ordinary human with no fighting ability has only a pathetic 5 points of power level when holding a firearm in his hand. Only 5 points of power level with a firearm in hand? How come the requirement is so high? Then how much power level do I have now? Launch said in disbelief as her eyes widened. Ayaka gave her a look and said precisely after observing with her unsighted eye, your current power level is almost 140. About the same as Master Roshi, which can be ranked in the top 10 on Earth. Goku is stronger, reaching about 160, one of the most powerful people on Earth. However, compared with those who can easily kill thousands of people on the outer planets is still not enough. Then she looked at the old Kami. The old Kami's power level is about 280. In fact, the Kami and ordinary humans are not too different. Kami just had a few more unique skills. Plus, the old Kami is a Namekian and carries some Namekian special abilities. Even the Kami is only 280 power level, then Mr. Popo must also be about this degree. Then if one day people from other planets invade the Earth, what should we do if we are completely defenseless? At the words, the old Kami and Mr. Popo also moved a little. This was also what they were worried about at the moment. If it weren't for Ayaka talking about aliens, they would never worry about the invasion. However, the fact was that this danger exists. In case it happened, they certainly couldn't resist with their less than 1000 power level. Didn't Ayaka say that less than 1000 was just a low-level planet? Ayaka smiled and shook her head. The average alien will not look at the Earth, but not absolutely. So there must be enough fighting to protect the Earth, which is why there is lookout on Earth. In addition to maintaining order on Earth, the Kami is also responsible for protecting the planet from the alien invasion. But it seems that with our abilities, we simply cannot defend ourselves against the vast majority of foreign threats. The old Kami said worriedly. Don't worry about that. Compared to those chillingly strong monsters in the galaxy, I'm still pretty strong. So don't worry too much about me being defeated. Hearing Ayaka's words, the old kami had a slight bottom in his heart. This was the first time that Ayaka had revealed information about her strength in front of him. Upon listening to her tone, it seemed that she was still relatively confident about the more ranked kind. At least, she should be considered from a middle-level planet. The old kami thought, if 10,000 or more was a high-level planet, then Ayaka should fit the tone of saying that thing as long as she had 10,000 power level. Ayaka, tell me honestly, what exactly is your strength? The old kami asked seriously. Launch and Mr. Popo were also very curious about Ayaka's strength. Well, it's not very high. Ayaka said somewhat modestly, I just looked at it. It's about 213,000 or so. Boom! There was a lightning bolt coming from the sky. What? Ayaka, did I hear you right? What's your power level? 210,000. Launch's face showed a shocked expression. Although she was prepared, the terrifying strength of 210,000 was indeed too shocking, making her entire speech shiver. 210,000, you actually have the strength of 210,000. The old kami was a bit dumbfounded. However, he soon recovered and smiled, it seems that my eyes are still good. Kami with 210,000 power level, that's enough to ensure the safety of the earth. Ayaka, do you have any way to increase your strength quickly? Launch asked expectantly. No, I trained all my strength by myself. I grew up in a harsh environment, where the gravity and air composition is a bit different from Earth and is much harsher than Earth in comparison. Speaking of secret techniques, Ayaka still had a few techniques learned from planet Yardart. However, they could not be taught to others indiscriminately without the consent of the Yardartians. Upon seeing that Ayaka didn't have any way to grow strength quickly, Launch couldn't help but be a little discouraged. Wait, there is a place that may be able to let you grow strength quickly. Ayaka looked at the old kami and suddenly thought of the magical ability of the Grand Elders of Namekian. If the Grand Elders were allowed to develop their potential, not only Launch, but she could also increase her strength greatly. Ayaka couldn't help but curse herself for being confused and forgetting such an important matter. If it wasn't for Launch's words that made her remember, she didn't know when she would have remembered to go to planet Namek. As long as her strength becomes stronger, the better the effect of absorbing energy when using the energy bound. She needed to improve her strength before it was too late to enhance the effect of the energy bound faster. What place can enhance strength? Looking at the old kami, Ayaka narrowed her eyes and said, Planet Namek. Planet Namek was located in a remote corner of the north area. It was an emerald green planet with mostly land and minimal ocean area. However, it had many lakes and freshwater, almost one lake every few dozen kilometers, and the land was covered with green grass, giving the overall appearance of a prairie. It was a breezy afternoon on planet Namek. The breeze blew the tender turquoise grass, rippling out a wave-like ripple. The rising sun irradiated down, giving people a warm feeling. Is this planet Namek? It's stunning, and the air is very fresh. At the top of a rocky mountain, Ayaka brought Launch to planet Namek by instant transmission. Upon looking at the endless green grasslands, breathing in the freshness of the air, Launch's heart was full of excitement. This was the first time she left Earth to come to another planet and a planet with such a beautiful environment. All of a sudden, a strong sense of satisfaction rushed to her heart. If she could live leisurely on such a beautiful planet, she would be so happy. This is planet Namek. Ayaka also sighed, we just need to find the Grand Elder of planet Namek to develop the potential in our body, and then we can significantly enhance our strength. Looking around, Ayaka found that planet Namek was actually quite desolate. At least, the richness of species was far less than that of Earth. In addition to the green grass all over the ground, very few trees exist. There were only a few spherical strange plants growing sporadically and animals that were even more pathetic. The visual impact of the first sight immediately formed a stark contrast. Ayaka roughly guessed that this was the result of the climate variation of planet Namek. Since the climate change that swept the entire planet, most plants and animals on planet Namek had been extinct. The number of people surviving here on planet Namek was also tiny, all living in community. Ancient Namekian once had extremely developed technology, even at the expense of the environment. Therefore, Namekian was once heavily polluted. The good thing is that the developed space voyage technology enabled a few people to spend a hard time on the outer planet. Later, when they returned to planet Namek, they learned from their mistakes and planted a lot of green plants to protect the carbon dioxide gas wall. Hundreds of years ago, however, another major climate change occurred on planet Namek. The vast majority of the population died, except for the few Namekians sent off the planet. Only the Grand Elder of the planet Namek survived. He reshaped planet Namek to make it habitable again, but so far, the Namekians on this planet are still very scarce. Ayaka briefly introduced the history of planet Namek to Launch, and Launch nodded repeatedly. Her heart lamented the misfortune of the people of planet Namek. Most of the Namekian have divine power, such as regeneration, body flexibility, cloning, and they can communicate with the power of the dragon god, Zulma, and summon the divine dragon down to create the magical Dragon Ball. Is it the kind of Dragon Ball on Earth that can grant wishes? Yes, the old kami on Earth are the Namekians who fled over when the climate of planet Namek changed. That's why the Dragon Balls exist on Earth. The Dragon Balls made by the great elders of planet Namek are more powerful than the Dragon Balls on Earth and can grant 3 wishes at a time. This time, in addition to developing the potential, I came to planet Namek to borrow the Dragon Balls on planet Namek. According to her understanding of the original story, Ayaka roughly concluded that the Dragon Balls were only used to communicate with the dragon god, Zulma. When the 7 Dragon Balls were gathered, the dragon god could rely on the Dragon Balls to project down. The dragon god, Zulma, wanted to be the entire Dragon Ball world's overall consciousness or the law of cause and effect, a power that exists in the otherworld. Based on the Dragon Ball creator's ability, the dragon god would have different abilities when descending. However, none of them could exceed the Dragon Ball maker's authority, otherwise, the wish would not be fulfilled. The abilities of the divine dragon and the Dragon Ball maker were different. What the kami couldn't do, the divine dragon could do by relying on the power of the dragon god. However, it couldn't go beyond kami's power. This was why the kami couldn't bring people back to life, but Shinran could do it. Then why don't the Namekian use the Dragon Balls to wish for the transformation of the planet Namek or to bring more Namekians to life? Launch asked. Maybe it's because of the law of cause and effect. Ayaka thought for a moment. Let's fly to the east. I feel that there is life there. Ayaka felt the air filled with the scent and then flew with Launch in the east's direction. After flying for about 10 minutes, Ayaka found a Namekian village. The community was tiny, probably only a dozen Namekians, with scattered buildings in a half-arc shape. In the middle of which was reclaimed farming land, and a few Namekians were busy in the fields. The Namekian buildings were bizarre, looking like insects' shells, with sharp prisms sticking out of the rounded corners. When Ayaka and Launch landed on the ground, those Namekians stopped what they were doing and walked up to Ayaka with a surprised look. A chubby old Namekian walked out, "Young lady from an alien planet, may I ask what you are doing here on planet Namek?" He must be the elder of this village. There are so few people in this village. Ayaka surveyed these Namekians and found that there were actually only a few dozen people in the whole community. Nearly half of them were old people and children. "Hello, you are the elder of this village, right?" "My name is Ayaka, I am a kami from Earth. This is my companion, Launch. We came to planet Namek because we want to see your grand elder. I hope you can lead the way for us." Ayaka, of course, didn't know the Namekian language. However, as soon as she heard the language of the Namekian, she could translate the Namekian language system using the language secret technique learned from Planet Yardrat. So when she spoke, she was fluent in the Namekian language. That Namekian elder vaguely felt that the little girl in front of him harbored a terrifying power. When he heard that she was looking for the Grand Elder, his expression was abruptly tense, and his eyes became stern. However, when he saw that Ayaka did not have any evil aura on her, he could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Kami from Earth, welcome to Planet Namek. The place where the Grand Elder lives is very far away from here. If we leave now to go there, we will not reach it even after dark. It will affect the Grand Elder's rest. Why don't you stay here for one night and wait until early tomorrow morning, and then I will send the young men of the community to accompany you there. How about that? Of course, then I'm sorry to disturb you, Ayaka said with a smile. She was clear that the status of the Grand Elder was supreme in the eyes of the Namekian. They would not disturb the Grand Elder's rest for anything. If Ayaka were going to go to the Grand Elder's residence now, in this village elder's opinion, she would not be able to arrive at least until the night. Then she would disturb the Grand Elder's rest, which was unacceptable. Ayaka knew what the Namekian had in mind. Besides, she was asking for help, so she nodded her head and agreed. Seeing that Ayaka was very good at talking, the Namekian elder had a bright smile on his face. He immediately and politely led Ayaka and Launch into the house. Into the room arranged by the Namekian, Launch sat down on the bed, and said, I didn't expect that all these Namekian looks exactly like the old Kami of the Lookout. What a shock! Didn't I tell you, the old Kami of the Lookout is also a Namekian, who escaped to Earth when the climate of planet Namek changed? Oh, by the way, don't say anything to others about us coming to planet Namek in the future. I don't want others to know about the situation of planet Namek. Launch then nodded her head. A few hours later, night fell. Ayaka and Launch were invited to a dinner of the Namekian and had a unique dinner of the Namekian. Because the skin of the Namekian was green and had a function similar to that of plant photosynthesis, they simply had to drink water and use photosynthesis to produce starch to meet their physiological needs. So, the dinner they prepared was very simple. To be honest, Ayaka felt exactly the same before and after eating. In the end, she could only secretly chew a senzu bean even when Ayaka could also get energy through the energy bound. Moreover, she also didn't need to eat. The next morning, the sky began to glow in a fishy white color. The night became bright and gorgeous sunlight shone down through the clouds, bringing a warm feeling to people. Planet Namek was the fourth planet in the 27th main galaxy of the constellation Vega. It was a planet in a trinary star system, and because it was a trinary star system, it was generally said that there was no day and night on planet Namek. However, all this was history, as in the early days of the planet Namek evolution, the primitive atmosphere was also very suitable for plants' growth. Therefore, the lack of species had entered a dire situation on planet Namek. Ayaka and Launch stood in the open space in front of a room. The planet Namek's elders were gathered around Ayaka with their people. His name is Vinny, a young warrior of our Namekian. He will take you to the residence of the Grand Elder. The elder pointed to a young Namekian and said to Ayaka. Ayaka sized up the Namekian named Vinny. He was wearing a grey coat, looked very much like the young Piccolo. He had excellent strength, with a power level of more than 1,000, and was one of the best warriors of the Namekian. Thank you, Namekian's elders. I appreciate you taking care of us. Ayaka smiled and thanked the Namekian elder, then nodded to Vinny and flew up in the air towards where the Grand Elder lived. On the way, Vinny didn't say much. He kept silent and led the way in front. Ayaka was wise enough not to ask too many questions. So, she and Launch only watched the scenery along the way. The natural environment of planet Namek was perfect. Although the creatures were scarce and didn't have too many species, the open and flat grassland still gave Ayaka and Launch a big impact. The breeze and fine grass swayed with the wind, radiating a circle like a wave-like pattern. With the green lake along with the embellishment, it seemed extraordinarily vast and pale. The scenery along the way looked eminently spring-like, with beautiful images of vast and endless grasslands and jagged, unique mountains and strange rocks. After nearly 10 hours of flying, Ayaka and others gradually left the grasslands and lakes area, entering the canyon ravine area. The scenery here wasn't as beautiful as it was just now, with bare rocks rising from the ground, sporadically covered with green moss. The scenery was somewhat barren and desolate. The Grand Elder's residence is just ahead, through the canyon over there. Vinny pointed to the wide canyon in front of him. He turned his head to Ayaka and said. Ayaka nodded and continued to fly forward. She soon crossed the canyon and came to a stone forest surrounded by mountains and rocks. The stone forest here was old, already many years old. In many places, the rocks could not withstand the years' ravages and slowly weathered and cracked. These stone forests are all formed due to crustal movement during the time of the Great Climate Change. The Grand Elder is a nostalgic person and has been living here alone. In addition to the Namekian responsible for guarding the Grand Elder, others generally don't set foot in this area. Vinny introduced, then continued to lead Ayaka to fly towards the Grand Elder's residence. Ayaka nodded. At that moment, she turned around and saw that Launch was a bit stretched, and her face was slightly white and froze. Here we are. Up ahead is where the Grand Elder lives. I'll send you this far, go up and find the Grand Elder yourselves. Vinny pointed to a white building on top of the peak and said. Thank you so much for leading the way. Please express my gratitude to the elders for me. Looking at the white building on the cliff, Ayaka smiled and expressed her gratitude to Vinny. You're welcome. Vinny nodded at her and then returned along the road. Let's go up there. Taking a breath, Ayaka slowly flew towards the Grand Elder's residence. The Grand Elder's dwelling was much larger than the average Namekian's house. The whole place was divided into 2 floors. The top floor was the Grand Elder's room, and the bottom was inhabited by the Namekian warriors who were responsible for guarding the Grand Elder. When Ayaka and Launch arrived in front of the huge building, a green-skinned Namekian came out. You are here. The Grand Elder already knows that you are here to see him, please follow me. The young Namekian said to Ayaka. According to the original story, Ayaka knew that this Namekian was the guard in charge of protecting the Grand Elder Nail. He was one of the few warrior-type Namekian and almost the most powerful fighter on planet Namek, which now had 30,000 power levels. Following behind Nail, they soon came to the Grand Elder on the 2nd floor. The Grand Elder was so senile that he couldn't move around and only lean on his seat. The Grand Elder's huge size was appalling. Hello, Kami from Earth. I can feel the pure divine power from you. I wonder what you want to see me about. The Grand Elder's old voice rang out, kind and gracious. However, due to his advanced age, his voice carried a slight tremble. Greetings, Grand Elder of planet Namek. I am very sorry to come and disturb you. I heard that you have the special ability to develop the human body's potential. We came here to enhance our own strength. I feel that shortly the Earth will encounter the threat from the foreign evil forces, and to protect the Earth, we need more powerful strength. Because of the request, Ayaka kept herself as humble as possible. The Grand Elder could foresee Ayaka's arrival and certainly could more or less scout out some of the things that would happen in the future. Although it might only be an outline, it was enough to testify to the truth of what Ayaka had said. Ayaka was telling the truth. The Grand Elder nodded his head slightly. Nail was shocked to hear this because even he didn't know that the Grand Elder had the special ability to develop people's potential. The Grand Elder smiled lightly and said, well, I didn't expect you to know about my ability. You are right, guarding one's planet against the invasion of evil forces does require great power. So, step forward and let me develop your potential. Wait, Grand Elder, you are old. If you use your power casually, it will greatly deplete your strength. Nail hurriedly stopped with a worried expression on his face. He was worried that if the Grand Elder used his divine power, it would consume his body's power, thus affecting the Grand Elder's lifespan. Oh, don't worry. Developing strong energy for people is my special ability. It doesn't consume physical strength. My body can still last for more than 10 years. At this time, Ayaka seemed to remember something, so she said to the Grand Elder, "Grand Elder, before raising the potential, can I borrow the Namekian Dragon Balls for a while?" Ayaka came to planet Namek to develop her potential and use the Namekian Dragon Ball to make a wish. Incidentally, she wanted to use the Dragon Ball to solve Launch's two soul problems, but she remembered a limit to Shenron's wishing. She wondered if Shenron still had the ability to make changes to Launch's body after boosting her power. "Oh, I wonder where you know about the Dragon Balls from." The Grand Elder opened his half-closed eyes in surprise, and his eyes flashed with amazement. Grand Elder, the last kami of Earth, was also from planet Namek. He escaped from planet Namek when it suffered a great climatic, so the Dragon Balls also exist on Earth. However, the Dragon Balls on Earth are not as powerful as those on planet Namek. Dragon Balls also exist on Earth, so no wonder. The Grand Elder said, "It turns out that there are still Namekian on other planets. Earth's kami, I'll leave this Dragon Ball to you. Come back after making a wish and let me develop the potential. I feel that shortly, planet Namek will also encounter the invasion of evil forces, and at that time, the extra power of justice is an extra hope." The Grand Elder stretched out his hand, took out the huge Dragon Ball behind his seat, and handed it to Ayaka. "Thank you, Grand Elder. In the future, when planet Namek encounters the invasion of evil power, I will definitely come to help." Ayaka gave her promise without hesitation. "Oh, I'll be counting on you then, Earth's kami. Nail, you take them to each village to get the Dragon Balls." "Yes, Grand Elder." Ayaka watched as Nail walked out of the room. She then smiled at the Grand Elder and then used the divine power of the kami to hold the huge Dragon Ball in the air, following in the footsteps of Nail. "Kami of Earth, although I know that you came to planet Namek to guard your planet, the Grand Elder is old, I hope you won't trouble him too much," Nail said with a cold face as he flew ahead. Ayaka smiled lightly and nodded. Looking at Nail at this moment, she couldn't help but think of the lookouts Mr. Popo. The two were very similar in guarding. "The Grand Elder is very lucky to have such a faithful guardian as you. On our Earth's lookout, there is also a good guardian who is dedicated to his duties. If you can get to know each other, you will definitely become good friends." Nail didn't reply and continued to fly rapidly. Since Nail's power level was extremely high and Ayaka was able to keep up closely, it didn't take long to wander through several large villages on planet Namek. With Nail as the Grand Elder Guardian to escort, it was very smooth to get the 7 Dragon Balls. When the 7 Dragon Balls were gathered together, the Dragon Ball's surface shone brightly with a golden glow. The buzzing low sound was incessant, and each flicker emitted a light chant similar to that of Shenron. "Kami, since you have collected 7 Dragon Balls, then I will go back to the Grand Elder first. After you have summoned Purunga, you should also go to the Grand Elder as soon as possible. Don't let the Grand Elder wait for a long time." Nail cold eyes looking at Ayaka, then swished up into the sky, flew toward the Grand Elder's residence, and soon disappeared into the sky. He. What a cold personality. Ayaka shook her head. After choosing an open and deserted area, it was grassland with green grass, a light green lake not far away, and a few short peaks standing further away, a place far away from the human population. If she summoned Purunga here, she wouldn't have to worry about being disturbed. "Dragon Balls, don't you let me down." Setting the 7 Dragon Balls in place, Ayaka shouted in the Namekian language, "Come out, Purunga." As soon as the words fell, the 7 Dragon Balls erupted with a fierce golden glow. The flash's frequency gradually accelerated, and a large black cloud slowly drifted in the sky, soon obscuring the entire sky. Boom! The sky suddenly resounded with thunder's loud sound, and golden lightning constantly flashed in the dark clouds. The rumbling sound of thunder resounded out, like 1,000 horses attacking. The momentum was magnificent. Rumble. Countless golden lightning struck straight down from the sky, stretching all the way to the ground, connecting the sky and the ground at once. The key is really spectacular. Ayaka sighed with a tsk. The huge dragon balls shone with an even stronger golden light. Each flash erupting with a booming sound, like a heavenly dragon about to take flight on the pale ground, which echoed with the golden lightning in the sky. Ow! The dragon balls violently erupted with a large amount of golden light, and a shocking aura shot out from the dragon balls, mixed with the power to destroy the world. The golden light snaked and soared toward the sky, merging with the lightning in the sky as a huge dragon roar resounded through the world. In the sky, a huge figure appeared. Planet Namek's divine dragon was called Purunga, which means dragon of dreams in the Namekian language. The dragon had a huge body of several thousand meters high, with well-developed muscles and 2 strong arms. It had black horns on its head and shoulders, and its broad and upright body contained more power than the Earth's Shinran. The huge shoulders and huge head with horns looked a bit like the Black Star Dragon in the Dragon Ball GT. Purunga stared down at Ayaka with scarlet eyes. His loud voice rang out in the sky, "You who have gathered the 7 Dragon Balls, you can say your wish. No matter what wish, you can only have 3. Ayaka breathed a strong sigh of relief, resisting the huge and terrifying aura of Purunga. As expected of the real divine dragon of planet Namek, the strength was really terrifying. Ayaka estimated that the key had nearly 1,000,000 power levels, far from the Earth's Shinran. First wish. Please split my companion into 2 full human beings relying on her personality. Ayaka pointed to the distant and already dazed Launch and said. To solve the 2 souls problem without wiped out either of Launch and Lancy was splitting them into 2 separate humans. Ayaka didn't wish to the Earth Shinran but relied on planet Namek Purunga, which had more powerful abilities. Got it. The first wish can be granted. Purunga's eyes suddenly lit up with red light, and so did Launch's body in the distance. Then, her body was magically split into 2 and slowly transformed into 2 young girls with identical clothing and attire. The 2 young girls were identical except for different hair colors. It was Launch and Lance, and at this point, they had become 2 completely separate people. Purunga, my second wish is to transform the 2 young girls in front of me, replace them with the Saiyan bloodline, and give them immortality. Ayaka started her second wish, then stared at Purunga with a gleaming gaze. She began to exploit the language loophole again. When she was on Earth, the Earth Shinran rejected such a wish of hers, and she wondered if the more powerful Purunga could make this wish come true. Purunga was silent for a long time, and his gruff voice rang out, "It is easy to grant immortality, but the Saiyan bloodline, forgive me for not being able to fulfill it." Why? Ayaka asked in amazement. Immortality was fine, why not a different bloodline? Because it involves the balance of the universe, which is bound to the rules. Purunga's gruff voice said. If any bloodline could be achieved, then countless monsters like Ayaka would appear. Therefore, the universe's rules didn't allow Purunga to change various creatures' bloodlines at will. Just now, Purunga said immortality, but it wasn't really immortality, but just a substantial increase in the original creature's lifespan. To achieve immortality like Ayaka was impossible. AI, that's a shame. The light gradually faded, revealing the 2 young girls' white and flawless bodies. Launch's appearance hadn't changed much, except that the skin became more delicate and lubricated, while Lancy's change was more significant. In addition to the more delicate and lubricated skin, the original golden hair became emerald green. The aura of the body also changed dramatically, less tyrannical and rough. It was more light and soft as if the whole person had been transformed. The second wish can only be fulfilled in this way. The third, the last wish, say it. Although she felt some shortcomings, Ayaka was soon relieved. That was true, the Dragon Balls weren't a universal wish-granting machine. If it were true that any wish could be granted, then the existence of the Dragon Balls would be a huge loophole. Purunga, I need a weapon. Please give me a sword that is integrated with my soul and can be summoned at will. With the previous wish that wasn't successfully fulfilled, Ayaka also seemed cautious when she made her third wish. This wish is easy. Purunga's eyes glowed red. Soon, Ayaka felt a tug at his heart. When her mind moved, a long sword appeared in front of her. It was a long sword with a brown scabbard and a golden hilt. The sword shone with a snow-white cold light, and at the end of the hilt, there was a golden star pendant like a bright pearl. Human, your wishes have all been fulfilled, so goodbye. With that, Purunga was about to ascend into the sky. Wait, Purunga, I have a question for you. Human, what is your question? Are you the same as Shinran on Earth? After she asked her question, she only waited for Purunga's answer. Yes, we are different alters of the same consciousness. Well, goodbye. As the Purunga ascended into the sky, the 7 Dragon Balls immediately dispersed to all parts of planet Namek. The whole sky was bright again, with the glorious sunlight shining down on the ground, mapping out a warm and peaceful atmosphere. Ayaka got her answer, and her previous guess was not wrong. The Dragon Balls were just the media to communicate with Zalama, the dragon god. The ones who descended were the projections of Zalama. They had the same consciousness, they just played different strengths depending on the media. She smiled as she walked towards the 2 sisters. Planet Namek Purunga was really remarkable, it could really divide the 2-soul person into 2 complete individual people. Although it did not replace the Saiyan bloodline and did not achieve a true sense of immortality, it had been perfect for Launch and Lancy. After observing Launch and Lancy through the unsighted, Ayaka found that after their transformation by the divine dragon Purunga, their power level had increased to a great extent, both reaching 280 power levels, twice as much as the original. Could it be that their power level is stacked to increase? If each person reached 100 power levels, they will both increase their power level by 200. That's incredible. Ayaka thought about it and felt that it was unlikely. There couldn't be such an unbelievable attribute. They are originally one. Although they are now divided into 2 people, they are still essentially linked together. The way of superimposed growth is unlikely, but the associated growth is possible. As long as one of them becomes stronger, the other will also grow in strength naturally in a short period of time. This possibility was the greatest. After lamenting for a while, it didn't take long for Ayaka and the others to return to the place where the Grand Elder lived. As soon as they arrived, Ayaka felt a mighty aura, which was surprisingly no worse than her full power. The owner of this key has a power level of no less than 200,000. Who the hell is it that has such a high power level? Ayaka's heart was shocked, and her vigilance had just risen. When suddenly she reacted again, how could this key be so familiar? It was actually Nail's key. Could it be that the Grand Elder had developed his potential for him? Nail was a rare warrior-type Namekian. He would eventually reach a power level of 42,000 with his training, and it would not be surprising to see him reach 200,000 power levels if the Grand Elder helped him open his potential. Ayaka remembered that Nail's power level was about 300,000, and after developing it, it reached 2 million, so it increased more than 6 times. What a terrifying increase! The more she sighed in her heart, the more Ayaka looked forward to it, wondering how much it would rise when it was her turn to develop it. Ayaka, what a terrifying key! Launch's and Lancy's face was gloomy. Ayaka smiled and said, "Don't be afraid, that's Nail's key. It should be the Grand Elder who opened up his potential for him, and he isn't able to collect his key yet. So it's him." The 2 looked slightly relieved. At this time, Nail came out of the room, slightly surprised to see Ayaka and the others. How could there be another one? However, he didn't say much and said succinctly, "You guys come with me up. The Grand Elder has been waiting for you for a long time." After saying that, he turned around and walked into the house. Ayaka smiled lightly and shook her head. He was so cold, and it made her helpless. So she is one body with two souls. It is a very rare physique. It seems that your wish has been granted. Earth's Kami, now I will develop your potential. Which one of you will be first? The Grand Elder looked at Launch, who had become two people, in amazement. He couldn't believe that he hadn't seen that she was a two-soul person at the beginning. A two-soul person divided into two people was an extremely rare physique, which was why the Grand Elder had paid extra attention to her. I'll go first. Launch walked up to the Grand Elder and said. The Grand Elder smiled and nodded, extending his thick arm and placing his entire palm on Launch's head. The Grand Elder was surprised and said, "What a pure heart. You are the purest human I have ever seen." With that said, the Grand Elder unleashed his divine power and triggered Launch's body's potential. Swish! A white light swept up from the ground. Launch only felt a huge surge of heat inside her body and soon spread to all parts of her body. Every cell was full of vitality like a bloodshot, and her body was soothed. As the Grand Elder developed her potential, the ki on Launch's body began to rise. Ayaka's face, who was standing on the side, changed at once. Outstanding potential. Little girl, keep up this mind. Your body still contains an amazing potential, I can only open so much for you. The rest will need to be developed by your continuous training. The Grand Elder said in a calm tone as he released his hand on Launch's head. On the side, Ayaka's face had been full of surprise. Through the unsighted observation, she found that Launch's current power level had risen to 85,000. The effect of developing potential was only a few tens of times, but Launch had surged 300 times, which was incredible. On the one hand, it resulted from the Grand Elder, who valued Launch's mind and tried his best to develop her potential. Also, it was the powerful potential given by the flawless mind, which was the advantage possessed by the one body with two souls. Launch felt the ki on her body, and the huge disturbance made the whole room under high-energy oppression. However, no one stopped her from releasing her ki until Launch was satisfied. She then collected her ki and bowed gratefully towards the Grand Elder. Next was the green-haired Lancy. After seeing her other self, Launch, develop her potential, her eyebrows showing a look of anticipation. Finally, after the Grand Elder development, Lancy also got what she wanted and reached a power level of 85,000. Earth's Kami, it's your turn. The Grand Elder's old voice rang out. Ayaka walked over to the Grand Elder's seat with anticipation. A large hand landed on her head and covered almost her entire head, huh? A trace of astonishment flashed across the Grand Elder's face, then closed his eyes and pondered. Earth's Kami, I feel that in your body contains a very magical power. I had only felt this kind of power when I created the Dragon Balls, the universe's top divine power. I never thought that you would actually have this kind of divine power in your body. It seems that you have an unlimited future. Let me see how much potential can be triggered in your body. With the release of the Grand Elder's skill to channel her potential, Ayaka suddenly felt a dry heat rise within her body. A majestic and vast aura steeply emerged from nowhere, surrounding her body and beginning a continuous transformation. The cell's golden energy continued to overflow, little by little convergence to all parts of the body. Ayaka felt warmth all over her body, and then a vast aura rose to the sky. This ki broke the entire cloud layer of planet Namek, and the thick floating cloud spread out at once. With the area where the Grand Elder lived as the center, the air and clouds began to swirl, forming layer after layer of a ring-like spiral. What a terrifying potential! I can only trigger an extremely tiny bit of it. I'm afraid this child will become a remarkable existence in the future. A shocked expression appeared on the Grand Elder's face as his gaze flickered to look at Ayaka, who was still engrossed in power. On the other hand, Nail, Launch, and Lancy had long been frightened by the terrifying aura of Ayaka's ki. About half an hour later, from the intoxication back to consciousness, Ayaka slightly twisted her body. Immediately, there was a light, crackling sound under the body, as if the whole body was frozen in a clay pot to break out of the ground. General, indescribable comfort. Ayaka shook her head and then used the unsighted to observe herself. She found to her horror that her power level had reached a frightening 2.4 million. That's 2.4 million power level. Does it increase by more than 10 times at once? Although she had known that her strength would increase greatly after developing her potential, she didn't expect it to reach 2.4 million at once. I really don't know how to thank you, Grand Elder. Ayaka said with an excited face. It's nothing. It's all the power of justice. Of course, the more, the better. Unfortunately, the power inside you is too mysterious and powerful. I can only trigger a tiny bit of it. Ayaka nodded with understanding. Grand Elder, don't worry, in the future, if there is any danger on planet Namek, I will definitely do my best to help. After receiving such an assurance, a smile appeared on the Grand Elder's face. Then thank you very much. After that, the three of them bade farewell to the Grand Elder and left the Grand Elder's residence. What a terrifying potential. After Ayaka and the others left, the Grand Elder whispered to himself, it might be a very fortunate thing for Namekian to form a friendship with her. Grand Elder, has she really reached 2.4 million power level? Nail asked in disbelief. The Grand Elder nodded, yes, it's a pity that my ability to develop potential also has certain limitations. Otherwise, I could definitely develop more potential. After leaving the Grand Elder's residence, Ayaka and the others flew through the sky with excitement as if they were fish leaping into a river. In the next few months, Ayaka accompanied Launch and Lancy to practice the control of Ki on planet Namek. After the serious study, they could finally control the huge amount of Ki on their bodies at will. The journey to planet Namek was basically over, and the three of them gained a huge harvest. Unfortunately, the early stage can't interfere too much with the fate of Goku and other Dragon Ball protagonists. Otherwise, Goku's potential is definitely beyond words. Of course, Goku's bloodline wasn't the elite warrior Saiyan bloodline. Allowing him to develop his potential prematurely would be unattractive in turn. The Lookout. Ayaka, Launch, and Lancy returned to Earth together. It could be imagined the astonished expression on the old Kami and Mr. Popo's faces when they saw Launch, who had split into two people. So it was a wish made through the Namekian Dragon Ball. I've never seen the physical attributes associated with this type before. Knowing what happened in planet Namek, the old Kami marveled as he surveyed Launch and Lancy. Well, now the Lookout has another servant god. Both have a combat power of more than 80,000. Ayaka said with a smile. The old Kami nodded in relief. Yes, it's amazing that the Grand Elder of planet Namek could develop such a huge potential. What a remarkable ability. Then in conjunction with the old Kami, Ayaka made a few sets of weight-bearing clothes for the sisters. These clothes didn't have the magical function of Ayaka's clothes, just like the nature of the clothes worn by Son Goku in the original story. However, because of Ayaka's participation, the clothes style was changed to a very innovative one. The next few days, Ayaka stayed in the lookout, either for training or standing on the edge of the lookout from time to time overlooking the lower realm. Simultaneously, the sisters followed Mr. Popo in the maintenance of the lookout's daily work. Thus, the time passed uneventfully. During this time, a lot of things happened on Earth. She learned from Korin that Son Goku had climbed up the Korin Tower. Although Ayaka's intervention enhanced Son Goku's strength compared to the original story, Mercenary Tao wasn't a dry good. After being defeated by Ayaka once, he worked even harder to practice for a while. Eventually, Son Goku still lost to the much stronger Mercenary Tao by a hair's breadth. Upa's father, Bora, died in the hands of Mercenary Tao. Son Goku had to climb the Korin Tower. Under the guidance of Korin, he began to train intensely. In the hands of Korin, he grabbed the fake, ultra-divine water, and eventually went to the next level of strength. Then, Son Goku challenged Mercenary Tao again and successfully defeated him. He then began to collect the 7 Dragon Balls to help UPA resurrect his father. In the place close to the Red Ribbon Army headquarters, a plane was slowly approaching. It was the plane in which Master Roshi and the others were riding. Since learning that Son Goku broke into the Red Ribbon Army headquarters single-handedly, Krillin and others were anxious. Finally, at the suggestion of Yamcha, Master Roshi, Bulma, and others flew the plane to the Red Ribbon Army's headquarters, intending to rescue Son Goku. Well, we finally arrived at the Red Ribbon Army's headquarters. Poir lying on the edge of the window, looking at the Red Ribbon Army's tall headquarters not far away. There are dense forests all around. Let's land at that place. Yamcha looked around and found a slightly flatter area. Why are we landing here? The distance is still too far. It's easy to encounter an ambush if we are too close to the base. Landing in this area can serve as concealment, and we can also rush into the enemy's lair when they are not prepared. Yamcha explained and landed the plane in the middle of the forest. Krillin first jumped out of the plane, cautiously observing the surrounding environment. After determining that there was no danger, the crowd jumped out of the plane one after another. Everyone, be careful. We must save Goku. Yamcha holding a machete. His eyes were flashing with harsh cold light and his face gloomy. Hold on. Yamcha, it's perilous to rush in like this. Let's make a battle plan. Master Roshi stopped them from rushing forward. The Red Ribbon Army was a behemoth, an existence that even the king of Central City couldn't erase. This was their headquarters, and once they rushed in, it would be impossible for them to get out in one piece. Although most of the weapons invented by the Earth's technological level were ineffective against the martial artists, some special points could be ruled out to cause harm to them. Master Roshi is right. Let's think of a more thorough plan. Yamcha thought for a moment and nodded his head. While Master Roshi and the others discussed countermeasures, a roll of black smoke suddenly rose in the distance. Krillin jerked up and pointed ahead. Look, there's an explosion in the Red Ribbon Army's headquarters base. What's going on? Did someone attack them? Master Roshi wondered. Goku, it's Goku. He broke out of the Red Ribbon Army's headquarters base. Bulma saw Son Goku's figure in the telescope and shouted evenly. What, is Son Goku capable of doing that? Yamcha was shocked to hear that. The Red Ribbon Army was not a role to be messed with. Even if Master Roshi just barged in, he might not be able to get out in one piece. It seems that Goku, in this period of time, the strength has surged again. What a surprise. Master Roshi thought about it and said with some emotion. In the distance, Son Goku had gotten rid of the Red Ribbon Army's constant pursuit. That so-called headquarters base collapsed in a burst of rumbling explosions. Goku, here. Krillin shouted. What brings you guys here? Seeing Krillin, Yamcha, and Master Roshi, Son Goku looked surprised. The next few people hurriedly left the spot and flew the plane to escape from the Red Ribbon Army's remnants. On the way to escape, Master Roshi and others listened to Son Goku tell what had happened in recent times. So, Goku, you climbed the Korin Tower and defeated Mercenary Tao. No wonder you can wipe out the Red Ribbon Army all by yourself. Master Roshi nodded, his heart was somehow understood. In his opinion, Son Goku's qualifications were extremely excellent. After Korin's guidance, his strength would certainly make a big leap. His previous worries became completely superfluous. Korin Tower, what is that place? Krillin and Yamcha's faces were filled with confusion. Korin Tower is a tall divine tower located in the sacred land of Korin. The height of Korin Tower is completely impossible to judge with the naked eye and technology. For some reason, no other tool can reach the tower's top except climbing up the tower by its own strength. Legend has it that at the top of Korin Tower resides the cat hermit Korin. As long as you get Corinne's guidance, your training can become more exquisite. So, Corinne is known as the Hermit Master. I once received instruction from Corinne 300 years ago, and my power level soared during that time. I was later called the God of Martial Arts. This time Goku also climbed up the Corinne Tower and easily defeated Mercenary Tao. It seems that Goku is now far better than I was when I was young. Master Roshi shook his head. There was some sentiment of a new generation. Is this true? Krillin and Yamcha flashed in unison. Their eyes were flashed with amazement, but in their hearts, they kept the name of Corinne Tower firmly in mind. When they are free someday, they must climb up there to have a look. A few days later, came house. The cool sea breeze came from afar, and several water birds soared against the sea. Suddenly a runaway plane stumbled and flew over. Boom! Not far away, it set off a huge wave, and the huge wave knocked the plane down just in time. Oh no, it seems I hit something. Krillin, trying his Kamehameha, seemed to see something being knocked down by his half-assed Kamehameha and hurried towards the place where the plane had fallen. On the sea, the wreckage of a battered plane was slowly sinking, and snap. A woman in uniform climbed out of the wreckage of the sinking plane. She was wearing a gray and beige uniform, a helmet, and had a red ribbon army mark on her chest. Colonel Violet was torn and found herself surrounded by an endless ocean. Even if she was familiar with the water, it was impossible to stay calm in the center of the ocean. A few days ago, the Red Ribbon Army she had joined was destroyed, and Violet, who was already dissatisfied with the army, knew that her chance to leave had arrived. So, she took the opportunity to sneak into the headquarters vault and swept away a house full of money. This will be my payment for these years of work. Look, Yamcha, it's a woman. Krillin looked at Violet, who was struggling in the water, with surprise. She was wearing an officer's uniform with the Red Ribbon Army logo on it. Krillin was a little embarrassed. Although the other side was from the Red Ribbon Army, she was a woman. In any case, he was the one who shot her plane down. Krillin scrambled to get Colonel Violet out of the water, an embarrassed look surfacing on his face. Came house. Master Roshi looked at the blue-haired Colonel Violet. So you took advantage of the destruction of the Red Ribbon Army to break away from it? Colonel Violet nodded. Yes, originally I swept the army's vault and prepared to settle far away from the headquarters. After all, it would be very troublesome for those remnants to know if I did such a thing. She said awkwardly. In fact, now she vaguely regretted it. The remnants of the Red Ribbon Army were also very powerful. After all, she was alone, it was bad to mess things up. So, Colonel Violet urgently needed a group of people with enough power level to ensure her safety. You swept the Red Ribbon Army's vault. Krillin interjected. Master Roshi got excited all of a sudden, and his face became radiant. Why don't you stay here? We are all powerful here. Don't worry about the remnants of the Red Ribbon Army at all. Really? Colonel Violet said in surprise. Having been exposed to the Army Corps' internal information, wouldn't she know that the short, bad old man in front of her was actually the famous martial arts god, Master Roshi? And these few around here were his disciples who had excelled in the recent World Martial Arts Tournament. Master Roshi, is this okay? Yamcha asked cautiously. Master Roshi put on a serious expression. What would be the problem? Then he whispered, do not forget that she is a woman. We Turtle School also need a woman to take care of the household. Besides, she has money. She is the one who swept the Red Ribbon Army vault. How much money is that? We have so many people here to eat, the financial crisis. When he said so, Yamcha also had no reason to object. After the internal unification, Master Roshi said seriously, Colonel Violet, we will call you Violet from now on. However, you know that we are located in a remote area here, there must be no entertainment, and every time we go shopping, we have to fly the plane. We need money to pay for gas for this journey. You do not have to worry. If I stay here, I will certainly give you the appropriate payment. Colonel Violet was not very attached to money. At once, she took out more than $1 billion worth of gold and cash. These will be treated as the cost of my stay. Even the billions of cash left in her hand is enough for her to spend the rest of her life in style. Master Roshi, Krillin, and Yamcha were dumbfounded. Master Roshi's gaze was dull, and his saliva flowing from the corners of his mouth. Krillin was dumbfounded, probably never having seen so much money. As for Yamcha, he had a sour face. When he was a bandit in the desert, the best he could do was rob 1 million or so a year, and tens of millions were just a handful. And, everyone calls me Violet. This is my real name. Colonel is just my title. Master Roshi and others nodded dumbfounded. There really was a time when the pie falls from the sky. So, the first female was finally going to live in the Kame house, which was really congratulations. After Son Goku destroyed the Red Ribbon Army, he found 2 Dragon Balls in their headquarters. Great, there is still one last one to go. He pulled out the Dragon Ball radar. It beeped a few times, and the radar showed the location of the Dragon Balls. Hey! Strange. Why isn't the last Dragon Ball there? There was clearly more before. He found that he could not find the 7th Dragon Ball on the radar, except for the 6 Dragon Balls in the center. It's terrible. Is the Dragon Ball radar broken? Like the original story, the only way was that Son Goku had to go to Fortune-Teller Baba's palace to find the Dragon Ball's location that Fortune-Teller Baba had divined for him. Fortune-Teller Baba's palace was located in a remote desert area. It was the only oasis in the distant desert. When Son Goku arrived at the Fortune-Teller Baba's palace, he saw a long line of people at the palace entrance, and a ghost-like air mass was maintaining order. That was the servant hired by the Fortune-Teller Baba. Because Fortune-Teller Baba had the ability to straddle the other world and the world of living, so there were all kinds of strange and bizarre characters in her palace. According to Fortune-Teller Baba's rules, each divination needs to charge 10 million or defeat her 5 warriors. Because Son Goku had no money, so he chose to defeat her 5 warriors. After defeating the vampire, transparent man, mummy, and demon, Fortune-Teller Baba sent the last ace masked man, and the duel was held in the outdoor square. Son Goku's power had no longer been the same. It took some effort to defeat the masked man, and after taking off the mask, Son Goku realized that the masked man was his deceased grandfather Son Gohan. After spending some time with Son Gohan, Son Goku rushed to the destination according to Fortune-Teller Baba's divination and snatched the last Dragon Ball from Pilaf. Later, to achieve his ambitions after the Dragon Ball's loss, Pilaf scrambled to find Demon King Piccolo, who was sealed 300 years ago. On the other hand, after getting the 7 Dragon Balls and returned to Korin Tower, Son Goku found UPA. He then began to summon Shenron, asking Shenron to resurrect UPA's father. The lookout. Ayaka, where are we going? The sisters were pulled by Ayaka and went down the hallway below the lookout. The winding and twisting hallway made launch, and Lancey felt a little dizzy. The bottom level of the lookout was actually a passage to another dimension. Ayaka said with one eyebrow and a smile, I'll take you to visit King Yema of the other world. He is the god in charge of the other world in the north area. There are many benefits to having a good relationship with him. The god in charge of the other world. Is the King Yema as scary as in myths and legends? Launch black eyes flashed a little light, looking full of curiosity. Ayaka couldn't help but remember the first time he saw King Yema and was scared by his huge body. Well, King Yema is not scary even when many people are afraid of King Yema, who is in charge of death. If you are familiar with the situation, you will find that the King Yema is actually very nice to talk to. In fact, Ayaka also knew that King Yema wasn't nice to everyone else. He only had an amiable attitude when it came to her. It should be known that the same Earth's Kami, the old Kami, would have to be submissive and trembling in front of King Yema, whereas she could talk to King Yema as she pleased. Above King Yema, there exists Kai with a higher status. We are here in the North area, so it's under the control of the North Kai. North Kai is the supreme god of the entire North area. He is also a martial arts master with a different perception of the martial arts. If you can get the guidance of North Kai, your skills can advance by leaps and bounds. Ayaka, of course, didn't simply take the sisters to meet King Yema. The main thing was to pay homage to North Kai through the Snake Road. Ayaka and the sisters' power was already strong enough. Their foundation was also solid, and they needed to improve their power through North Kai's guidance. Although North Kai was a bit of a joke in the whole Dragon Ball plot, there was no doubt that North Kai was the highest power level in this current situation. Of course, when it came to the Frisia clan, it was estimated that he couldn't do anything about it, but North Kai had the Kaioken and Spirit Bomb, which was a big killer. A snake road was leading to the North Kai's planet. It was said to be 1,000,000 kilometers long. Walking on it was full of crises and could be attacked from hell at any time. For 100 million years, it was only King Yema who had visited Kais through the Snake Road. Considering that the Earth's circumference was less than 40,000 kilometers, 1,000,000 kilometers long, and full of Snake Road crises wasn't a small challenge. Ayaka, you're amazing. You can even go to the other world, and know King Yema. Lancey's eyes wide open, full of admiration. This is the power of the kami. If I were by myself, it would still be a little troublesome to go to the other world. The corners of Ayaka's mouth emerged with a smile. Kami had the ability to communicate between the other world and the world of living and could travel freely between them. However, if she wanted to take a living person with her to the other world, Kami's divine power was still not enough, and she needed a little help from props. The power of Kami is just convenient. Although it does not play much of a role when fighting, it is convenient to use in normal times. The three of them walked down the hallway and came to the door of a room. Ayaka opened the door. My divine power cannot yet take you two to the other world at once, so we have to use the magic array in this room. It will allow us to reach the other world without any problems. Ayaka stepped into the room, then pressing the button next to the door. The lights in the room came on. They saw a complex pattern carved in the center of the room. The lines of the pattern were crisscrossed, and the picture was complicated and dazzling, and that was the magic array that could enhance the divine power of Kami. The three walked into the magic array. Ayaka activated the magic array. The room lit up with a dazzling red light, and then, click, the red light flickered violently. The whole room was dazzling and blinding, and after a few seconds, the light gradually dimmed, and the room had lost the trace of the three. The sky in the other world was completely different from the earth and the world of living. It was filled with golden colors everywhere. The sky was still blue but covered by a golden cloud. Looking up, they could only saw one big golden cloud after another. The ground was also floating with golden clouds, suspended a foot above the ground, like cotton candy, making people wanted to take a bite. Is this the other world? It's completely different from what I imagined. It's as if I've come to heaven. The scenery of the other world was completely unexpected. A floating cloud drifted along the roadside, and the air was a series of auspicious clouds. The entire other world was pale yellow color everywhere, giving people a warm feeling, without the imaginary cold and dark. Not far away, a row of white air masses arranged in an orderly manner. Ayaka smiled and introduced, that is the souls of mortals after death. They are waiting in line for King Yema's sentence. Only people who are strong to a certain extent or who have done great good deeds in life are allowed to have a physical body form, otherwise, they are just a gas after death. Launch and Lancey nodded in understanding. At this time, a ghost with horns on his head saw Ayaka and others. Hey, three humans over there. In the other world, you have to abide by the other world rules, don't stand there dawdling. Hey, you don't have a circle of light on your head. You are alive, how come the living come to the other world? The ghosts came closer to find that Ayaka and the girls didn't have the halo of the dead on their heads, so he went to call his leader with a pale face. A short time later, the ghost officer came. He was a staff member with 2 horns on his head and wearing glasses. "Ah, it's Miss Ayaka. Are you here to see King Yema? Let me accompany you inside. I'm really very sorry that the new ghost staff didn't recognize you." As soon as that leader saw Ayaka, his face changed, and he immediately showed a respectful face. "It's okay, we just arrived too. I will go to King Yema by myself so that I won't disturb your work." Ayaka smiled lightly and nodded to that staff member, leading the sisters towards King Yema's palace. That staff member saw Ayaka and the girls walking away and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He pretended to be stern and said to the ghost officer before, "Look carefully, that person just now is not ordinary. She is the kami of the earth. Her status is much higher than us ghost officers of the other world. More importantly, she has an excellent relationship with King Yema. If you offend that person, you will not be able to get along in the other world. I can't believe she's such a big shot." The ghosts were horrified to hear that. They were delighted that they had not recklessly offended them just now. "Ayaka, you were so powerful. Those ghosts seem to be very afraid of you. Did you do something to make them afraid?" Ayaka looked at them, casually grabbed a cloud next to her, and rubbed the cloud into a handful. "It's not true. I haven't done anything scary. They are only afraid of me because I have a good relationship with King Yema and are afraid of offending him because of me." "So is King Yema scary?" "I'm afraid of King Yema is not because he's scary. King Yema is the highest god in the other world, representing the other world. As long as they are in the other world, whether they are souls or ghosts, they will instinctively fear King Yema. Here, that is the palace of the King Yema." Pointing to the towering hall ahead, golden clouds surrounded the entire palace. Only the palace's eaves could be seen vaguely, and the light red glazed tiles were laid on the roof of the palace, reflecting a crystal bright light. There were guards oddly equipped with 2 things similar to the bull's horn on the palace's main door. There were countless ghosts in front maintaining order, allowing rows of suspended soul bodies to enter the palace of King Yema in an orderly manner. "Let's go. When you enter the main gate of the palace, you can see King Yema." As soon as you entered the palace of King Yema, you could see that King Yema was holding his chin in his hand. He was sitting in front of a huge desk, holding a book in his hand to pronounce a sentence on the souls. Next to him, several staff members were busy organizing the documents. Seeing Ayaka, people walked into the hall. King Yema put down the book in his hand. There was a smile on his face, and he said, "Ayaka, you're here. I'll talk to you when I'm done with these souls." Ayaka nodded and took the sisters back to the side. Not long after, King Yema finished sentencing the remaining souls. "Then head over. Why did you come to the other world today? You usually don't come here much." "Well, these 2 living people are brought by you from the world of living. It is against the rules to bring living people to the other world." "Hey, they are not normal human beings, no wonder. By the way, why do you want to see me this time?" "These 2 girls are my god servants. I brought them to learn about the other world. Also, I hope you will allow us to see North Kai. I would like to receive guidance from him." "Do you want to see North Kai?" "To see North Kai, you have to pass the test of the Snake Road. It's full of crises, and you'll fall into hell if you're not careful." "Are you sure you want to go through the Snake Road?" King Yema asked in amazement. "Yes, I am confident that I can pass the Snake Road." Ayaka nodded seriously. Upon seeing this, King Yema said, "If you really want to meet North Kai, I can arrange someone to take you there later. However, I don't care if you fall from the Snake Road. You don't have to worry about this. You need to arrange someone to take us to the Snake Road." King Yema did not say anything more, so he asked the assistant beside him to take Ayaka and others to the Snake Road entrance. The 3 of them followed the assistant on the old-fashioned car, all the way along the thin road forward. The sides filled with golden clouds, as if they were traveling in heaven. The sisters were curious and looked at the surroundings with their eyes were full of novelty. The chic and beautiful colors on both sides of the road made them feel like they were in a dream. Ayaka, is the Snake Road very dangerous? The Snake Road is said to be 1,000,000 kilometers long, and it is perilous for the average person. It is subject to attack from hell at any time, and if you are not careful, you will fall to hell. Once you fall to hell, it is basically impossible to come back up. So, for countless years, only a few people will challenge Snake Road. Only King Yema has met North Kai through the Snake Road in the past 100 million years. If you fall to hell, you cannot come up, then it is perilous. Launch's face changed slightly. Ayaka cast a reassuring look and said, that is for ordinary people. With our strength, there is no danger if we pay a little attention. Moreover, the length of the Snake Road is 1,000,000 kilometers, which may not seem long, but it can also circle the earth 20 or 30 times, and running on it is not a small practice. The small car gradually drove away and finally stopped in front of a huge snakehead. Miss Ayaka, we are here. That is the Snake Road, just run along the snake body all the way forward, and you will see North Kai's planet. There is still a lot of work to be done in King Yema's palace, I will go back first. King Yema's assistant pointed to the huge snakehead with its bloody mouth wide open in front of him and said. Ayaka smiled and nodded at him, then turned his head, then, we should also step on the Snake Road. With our strength, we don't have to worry about the attack from hell, we can meet North Kai after a few days of running. Soon, the three of them stepped on the Snake Road. They flew up in the air with a whoosh flying at full speed a few meters above the Snake Road. Generally speaking, the Snake Road had a strong restraint. It was difficult to leave the ground, but Ayaka and the sisters were so strong that they disappeared in a flash. The clouds around them were affected by the whirlwind they had created, and they swarmed away to the sides, forming an open channel. In flight, Ayaka looked down at the Snake Road and found that many black clouds were faintly appearing on the Snake Road. Those clouds came up from below the golden clouds and spurted towards the heights. Could these black things be attacks from hell? She flew comfortably. At first, she had some inexplicable worries, but later she found that the black clouds from hell could not affect her. Her figure had long since flown far away when the black clouds attacked her. Well, it seems that's it. The attack from hell is not really scary. If we fly at high speed like this, they can't even catch up, and how can they attack us? The threat of the Snake Road was only for those with low strength. For them, the dangerous Snake Road was just the same for Ayaka and the sisters. As long as they weren't foolish to let the black cloud attack them, there was no danger. However, the role of training on the Snake Road was completely lost. After half a day's flight, Ayaka and the girls had already flown through most of the Snake Road. Their speed couldn't be described as fast. After a while, Ayaka gradually felt a subtle change in the surrounding space. The other world's aura slowly decreased and fading, while another feeling of very sacred ki slowly appeared. The surrounding was transforming to some higher dimensional space. Ayaka, the ki here seems to be changing. There is no more ki of hell down there. Launch also felt as if she and the others had stepped out of the other world. Ayaka nodded, maybe the North Kai's planet in a higher dimension beyond the other world. Since North Kai is the highest god in charge of the entire North area, it is unlikely that North Kai's planet is in the other world. The Snake Road is probably the passage that connects the other world and the North Kai's planet. We ran from the other world's Snake Road, and now we should have entered the space where the North Kai's planet is located. Ayaka also had some vague guesses. Above King Yema was the North Kai, but there was only one Snake Road in the other world, and it went straight to the North Kai's planet, so why didn't it lead to the other three Kai's planets? Perhaps there were 4 other worlds in the whole galaxy, which were under the control of the 4 Kais and other king of Underworld. This explained why there was only one snake road in King Yema's place, because this was only the other world of the North area, directly under the North Kai jurisdiction, so the snake road would only lead to the North Kai's planet. Then let's speed up a bit and fly out of the snake road. There's no point in staying on top of the snake road. I want to reach the place where the North Kai lives sooner. The scenery around the snake road was the same unchanging golden color. They would feel gorgeous and novel at first glance, but after such a long time of flying, Ayaka and the girls had already developed aesthetic fatigue and wanted to fly out of the snake road quickly. So, the three of them suddenly increased speed. With a quick flash of the swoosh, the three of them were completely invisible. Due to the substantial increase in speed, it only took half a day to see the snake road end faintly. Look, ahead is the end of the snake road. Ayaka pointed to the snake road that disappeared ahead, where it already belonged to another dimension. There was a largely empty, vast space with the snake road tail, surrounded by a sacred and tranquil atmosphere. The azure sky was covered with yellowish clouds, and the North Kai's planet was there. Finally, we've flown to the end of the snake road. Is that little green planet where North Kai lives? North Kai's planet was small. It was so small that it would take less than a few minutes to run around it for several weeks. The three of them flying above the snake tail, observing the tiny planet in front of them. The North Kai's planet was only 100 meters in diameter, covered with tender green fine grass. Except for the fine grass, there were only a few large trees and a house next to the trees. The trio took a few steps forward, and the North Kai's planet's powerful gravity immediately hit their bodies. The sudden gravity caused Ayaka and the others to fumble briefly as their bodies plummeted down toward the North Kai's planet. Ho! When they were about to hit the ground, Ayaka and the sisters steadied themselves, slightly opening their bodies to counteract the North Kai's planet's powerful gravity. Then, they slowly landed on the ground. The gravity here is really terrifying. My body seems to be bound, it's very inconvenient to move. Launch frowned. The gravity of the North Kai's planet is 10 times that of Earth. Plus, you are still wearing weight-bearing suits. The weight pressing on your bodies must not be small, it would be strange if you can still move around as usual. 10 times the gravity is huge, but it's still easy to adapt. Well, move your body, it feels much more comfortable now. The sisters twisted their wrists and bodies to stretch out and adapt to the new environment. They quickly adjusting their bodies to the 10 times gravity, then straightened their clothes and observed their surroundings. North Kai's planet was tiny. In one glance, they looked all over the planet, and not far away, a gorilla was looking at them curiously. How come there are still gorillas on the North Kai's planet? It's probably a pet raised by the North Kai. However, a gorilla that can survive in 10 times the gravity is not a simple species. That's right. It's a pet raised by North Kai. The North Kai's planet is small and unpopulated. If you live here for a long time, you will definitely go crazy if you don't have a companion. Being able to live on in this environment, North Kai's personality should not be quite the same as ordinary people. The gorilla named Bubbles cocked his head and stared at Ayaka and the others with its huge eyes. It then shouted, "Oh, oh, oh," and turned around to escape. This gorilla is quite interesting, huh? How dare you try to escape? Behave yourself and stop. Launch raised her eyebrows as if she saw a fun toy, revealing a bright smile. She then flashed her body and blocked in front of Bubbles. Seeing the woman who just appeared in front of him, Bubbles swung his hands in panic, grinning at the corners of his mouth, and shouted, "Oh." However, his body was already picked up by Launch, and no matter how he broke free, he couldn't escape from Launch's hands. Launch stopped fooling around. We still have to see North Kai. In North Kai's planet, Lancy was anxious. Just then, "Hey, who are you? How did you get here, and what are you doing holding on to Bubbles?" A voice came from the corner, and a fat figure was seen walking out. When Ayaka and the others arrived at the North Kai's planet, North Kai had just taken a nap. When he heard the shrill hissing of bubbles, he came out of the house ready to see what was going on. He saw three strange young girls appearing in the North Kai's planet, and Bubbles was being held in the hands of one of them with light blue hair. North Kai's eyebrows couldn't help but frown. Outsiders hadn't visited the North Kai's planet for a long time, and all those who could arrive were the top powerhouses of the North area. This time, there were actually three at once. It seemed that a lot of strong people had emerged in the world of living. Upon hearing the shout of the North Kai, Launch consciously let go of her hand. Babulus took advantage of the opportunity to escape the claws of the devil. With a shout from his mouth, he ran to the side of North Kai in panic. Ayaka looked at the legendary North Kai, and saw that North Kai had sunglasses on the corners of his eyes. His chin had two fleshy whiskers and two long antennae on his head. His swollen body wore a wide black suit with the word Kai printed on it. The two antennas on his head were used to sense the galaxy changes as North Kai managed the entire North area. You must be North Kai. I am Ayaka, the kami from Earth. These two are my servants. We came here to see North Kai through Snake Road. Kami from Earth? North Kai was slightly surprised. In his memory, the Earth should belong to the low-level planet. The successive Earth's kami was weak existence with a power level of no more than 500. With a power level of 500, maintaining stability within the Earth was naturally not a problem, but it was not enough to look at the entire universe. Well, you do have the key of a kami on you. The two next to you have a slightly lighter breath, but they should be the God servant. Okay, you have surprisingly passed the Snake Road. What do you want from me? I heard that North Kai is the most excellent martial arts master. We came to North Kai's planet because we hope to receive your guidance. Ayaka ruthlessly patted her back at that moment. Sure enough, North Kai's mood was great. Oh, you guys can move freely under 10 times the special gravity. Your strength is really not simple. It's been many years since Earth has produced someone as good as you guys. Let me count, 10,000 years or 100,000 years, like hundreds of thousands of years. Upon seeing North Kai calculating with his fingers on the board, Ayaka was momentarily speechless. North Kai, we want to get your guidance, please grant our wish. Do you want to improve your power through training? North Kai looked squarely at Ayaka. His expression was serious, and he said, you can break through the Snake Road and still move freely here. Your strength is already imposing. I have nothing to teach you, you'd better go back. Without anything to teach, then what happened to your Kaioken and Spirit Bomb? Ayaka was disgusted by the Kaioken's shabbiness. Wait, North Kai. I have something for you here, read it, and then you can decide whether you want to teach us or not. Upon saying that, Ayaka took out a brand new book and handed it to the North Kai. North Kai took the book suspiciously, then turned a few pages. His body actually trembled violently, his breathing became rapid, and his whole face was held red as if he saw something that made him incredibly excited. North Kai read a few pages, then let out a deep breath and carefully collected the books, looking at Ayaka with serious eyes. Indeed, you are really not simple to have such a divine object. Without teaching you something, I'll bury the talents of my North area. From now on, you'll stay here. Let's say in advance that your strength is already imposing, and even you have no less than mine. So, whether you can achieve any results, it's up to you. Don't worry, North Kai, we can wear weight-bearing clothes for training, you don't have to worry. By the way, I have a box of such books here, I'll give them to you now. Ayaka pulled out a box of books from the capsule and handed it over to North Kai like a treasure. He was carefully carrying it up and towards his hut. Find yourselves a place to stay, and tomorrow I'll teach you what you want. Ayaka looked around the pitifully small North Kai's planet. How could she still find a place to stay here? Poof! She took out a large house from the capsule, which was a house that had been enriched by divine power so that it would not collapse in the North Kai's planet. Watching North Kai walking away with the box in his arms, the two stared in awe. They didn't expect North Kai to have this kind of personality. It was really because he had lived on the North Kai's planet for a long time that his personality had been greatly distorted. Is this North Kai who is in charge of our North area? With this kind of personality, how can he really be a martial arts master? Why do I feel like I've come to the wrong place? Launch asked incredulously, shaking her head. Ayaka shook her head. North Kai may seem exaggerated and funny, but he is an uncompromising martial arts master. After living on North Kai's planet for countless billions of years, he has seen all kinds of martial arts in the world. Although his own strength is not very strong, in theory, no one in the entire North area can compare to him. So that's how it is. Ayaka, what book did you give North Kai? Amazingly, it could make him change his mind and teach us to train. Ayaka's face showed a strange smile, and she whispered, due to his long life on North Kai's planet, North Kai's greatest interest is to drive his small car and research jokes. Because no one listened to his jokes, so the content of those jokes slowly turned into lame jokes. Since North Kai likes jokes so much, I collected a box of lame jokes and gave it to him. North Kai is willing to teach us to practice just because of a box of lame jokes. Lancey felt incredible that North Kai would change his mind for some joke book. Well, it turns out that North Kai is very good at bribing. You don't have to spend too much. Just throw in some cheap books to bribe him. Bribing North Kai with a box of jokes is really an eye-opener. No matter how much, they couldn't believe it in their hearts. North Kai had already promised to teach them to practice. When they looked back at their big house, it looked a bit out of place to have such a big villa on the tiny North Kai's planet. Wouldn't it be a bit below and beyond the bounds of authority? Should I get a smaller house in the future? Well, forget it, it's still easy to put a smaller house elsewhere. Not all planets are as small as North Kai's planet. The higher space where North Kai's planet was located had no day and night. The whole world was blue and gold. About 10 hours passed before North Kai came out of the house satisfied, with a look of unfulfilled desire on his face. After getting a box of jokes from Ayaka, he spent more than 10 hours reading them, carefully studying every joke inside. Some of them always made him laugh and smile. However, knowing that Ayaka and the girls were still waiting for him, North Kai had to put down the joke book and walk out. It seemed that the mortal planet called Earth had developed the level of jokes far more powerful than their power. The strength was not good, but the culture was so high. It seemed that he had to pay more attention to it in the future. North Kai was filled with emotion. Although he could know every move of the North area, his focus was on the living beings. For those non-living beings, he still needed to go through the management system of the individual kami. Earth's kami, your name is Ayaka, and I am delighted with what you brought. You're really worthy of being a kami under my leadership. Alas, how come the other kamis do not have the same idea as you and know to send me something? North Kai, you can call me Ayaka. These two are Launch and Lancey, please guide us well. North Kai nodded and stroked his hand over the black glasses at the corner of his eyes. I will teach you well. It is up to you how much you can learn. Then let's get started. Unbind yourselves, and let me see how strong you are. Okay, North Kai, Launch, remove your weight-bearing clothes. Ayaka looked at the sisters, who smiled and nodded. They removed the pendants hanging around their necks. After removing the pendant, both of them instantly changed their clothes from dark green to light green. The weight on their bodies disappeared abruptly, and after moving their arms and legs, powerful ki emerged. This particular weight-bearing suit was developed through research by Ayaka and the old kami. Just bring a pendant as the enabling switch for the weight-bearing suit, which was very simple and convenient. When you didn't need to use the weight, take the pendant off, and you didn't have to take off your clothes. Oh, so it's a unique weight-bearing suit. What a novel setup. One of you is called Launch, and the other is called Lancy. Show all your strengths for me to have a good look. The two nodded with a light smile and then released their ki with full force. In an instant, a whirlwind blew up with them as the center. As if they were two typhoons, their hair floated in the wind. The green grass on the ground fell in all directions under the effect of their powerful ki. The tiny stones gradually broke away from the boundaries of the North Kai's planet and levitated upwards. North Kai felt the ki emanating from their bodies, and he was covered with terrifying ki. He shielded his forehead with his hand, blocking the whirlwind whistling around, then shouted, "Enough. Stop quickly. I already know your strength." When Launch collected her ki, North Kai wiped the sweat on his head and was really a bit surprised. Such a terrifying strength. According to the common calculation method in the universe, I'm afraid that both of them have tens of thousands of power levels. Launch and Lancy's power level are both 85,000, which seems very powerful, but compared to the monsters in the universe, it's still a far cry. North Kai nodded in agreement with Ayaka's statement. Tens of thousands of power level was enough to live in the universe in style, but to squeeze into the strong ranks was still far from enough. In the North area, where he was in charge, several characters had a power level of more than 10 million. The typical one was the strongest clan represented by Frisia, whose terror was so great that the galaxy was scared. I already know your approximate strength, the sisters have 85,000. So, as the core, how much is your power level, Ayaka? Well, you don't have to release your ki, just tell me directly. You can't ruin North Kai's planet. North Kai, my power level is roughly 2.4 million. 2.4 million. North Kai was astonished, and his whole body shook up. He then quickly walked to Ayaka's side and looked her up and down. With North Kai's eyes, he quickly judged Ayaka's strength, and his expression became even more shocked. To actually have 2.4 million power levels, it's incredible. No wonder you were chosen as the kami of Earth. If I'm not mistaken, you just turned 17, right? At such a young age, you actually possess such a powerful strength. When did Earth produce 3 of you outstanding talents? North Kai said with a horrified expression. However, in his heart, he began to make a small calculation. He must let Ayaka and the others grow up and become warriors to guard the North area. I will teach you all that I know, but you must not pass it on to anyone else, especially to some people who are not honest at heart, got it? Don't worry. We won't pass on what you teach to others. If I meet someone with good qualifications, I will personally send him here for you to examine. North Kai was satisfied with what Ayaka said and had a receptive expression on his face. He then turned his head to look at the sisters. Your strength is powerful. Even if my North Kai's planet has 10 times the gravity, it won't do much for you. So, get your weights back on, increase the weight on your body, and I will train you properly. Launch and Lancy nodded respectfully, then manipulated the clothes on their bodies to slowly change the gravity. The body was suddenly under huge weight, coupled with North Kai's planet's 10 times special gravity. They felt like their bodies were filled with weight. Every movement was challenging. They didn't even walk a few steps, and crystal sweat oozed out of their faces. Their breathing became difficult, with a crackling sound coming from their bones. Ayaka looked at their difficult walking appearance and was somewhat surprised. It seemed that North Kai's planet's special gravity was really different from the gravity of other planets. Even if they were 10 times, the effect was different. North Kai looked at them, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He then said, Launch and Lancy, for your first training, grab bubbles. You have to keep overcoming the limits of your body under difficult conditions so that you can grow faster. The two nodded knowingly. Then their bodies awkwardly lunged towards Bubbles, who lightly screamed and dodged to the side in a flash. Seeing that they had seriously captured the fleeing Bubbles around, North Kai turned to Ayaka. Ayaka, you are different from them. You are very powerful, and to be honest, I do not have much to teach you anymore. Ayaka understood this. With her power level of more than 2.4 million, she already had a certain level of power and basic skills. She had mastered almost everything on Earth. Now, what she lacked was only a variety of techniques, mastering a variety of combat skills, and achieving an increase in power, which was her future path to become a strong person. Finally, after a moment of silence, North Kai said what she was expecting in her heart: since I have nothing to teach you in terms of strength and combat skills, I'll teach you something a little more special. North Kai, what is it that you are going to teach me? Ayaka asked, pretending to be confused. Ahem, that is some knowledge about the training of various races that I have observed from the lower realms through countless years, as well as the result of my lifelong research. Kaioken. North Kai said proudly, twice Kaioken can raise twice the power in your body. Twice Kaioken means twice the power, and as long as your body can withstand it, you can keep raising your power. But if you exceed your body's tolerance range, Kaioken will be dangerous for your body. You can't use Kaioken continuously, for safety's sake. It's best not to make a Kaioken that exceeds 4 times. Ayaka's clear and flawless face emerged with a faint smile, as quiet and elegant as a breeze. She knew that Kaioken was not as magical as North Kai thought it was. Because of North Kai's strength limitations, he did not know that Kaioken actually had a ceiling. Like the Saiyan giant ape transformation, the Saiyan giant ape transformation could only reach a maximum of 100,000 power levels. After that, it would not increase the power level. Kaioken was also the same, only its limit was more lenient, which was 10 million power level. When the power level exceeded 10 million, the role played by Kaioken would become negligible. In the original story, after becoming a Super Saiyan, Son Goku would no longer perform Kaioken, mostly using the Spirit Bomb to defeat the opponent. The reason was when Son Goku became a Super Saiyan, the power of Kaioken had been negligible. Ayaka learned Kaioken from North Kai. She had some vague ideas in her mind to fuse Kaioken with her researched Heavenly Thunder Shock Surprise to develop a perfect punching technique. North Kai, teach me Kaioken. Okay. Just get ready to learn my Kaioken. After you learn Kaioken, you'll feel that it was worth the trip. North Kai shouted passionately. His bloated body trembled violently, and then he began to explain to Ayaka the mysteries of using Kaioken. A few days later, after the sisters had successfully captured Bubbles, North Kai brought in a new assistant, the cricket Gregory, to capture. After capturing Gregory, North Kai increased their weight and began to carry out a new round of training. On the other hand, Ayaka slowly understood the wonders of Kaioken. North Kai was worthy of being a martial arts master after a long period of time. There were many wonderful martial arts that Ayaka had never even thought of. After the detailed explanation of Kaioken, many incomprehensions suddenly opened up. Looking at the 3 who were doing their training, North Kai leisurely sat on a rocking chair to the side. These 3 girls are all so outstandingly qualified. The 2 are two soul with connection, and the other has almost black hole-like potential. With a little training, they might be able to become a terrifying existence comparable to Frisia. Then it will be possible not to let Frisia do whatever he wants. The evil Frisia clan might be able to be restrained a bit. After several more months of research, Ayaka finally mastered the release of Kaioken. She then slowly tried to integrate Kaioken into her Heavenly Thunder Shock Surprise. Her strength also reached a 2.8 million power level after many days of hard work. North Kai was surprised and relieved at Ayaka's rapid growth. As her strength grew, the thoughts in North Kai's mind were slowly changing. It seems that Ayaka's strength will catch up with Frisia within a matter of time. If she performs the Kaioken, she can be temporarily comparable to Frisia. In the future she can even be more powerful than Frisia. Ayaka, use Kaioken with all your might, and let me check it out. On this day, North Kai smiled and walked up to Ayaka, wanting to see his teaching results over this period of time. It had been a while since Ayaka came to North Kai's planet, and it was almost time to see the results of her training. Ayaka nodded and began to show her power at full strength. All of a sudden, the wind blew, and the violent whirlwind spread out with earth-shattering energy. The whole North Kai's planet began to shake violently. Outside North Kai's planet, the world changed color. The powerful ki shook away countless golden auspicious clouds, and the sky took on an empty azure color. Twice Kaioken. With a soft cry, the ki of Ayaka's body instantly doubled. Her flaxen hair danced with the wind, and the terrifying ki poured straight into the ground. The ground then began to crack, and a thick crack scattered in all directions. Bursts of debris bounced up from the ground and hovered gravity-free beside Ayaka. Twice Kaioken. Triple Kaioken. 4 times Kaioken. The furious ki rose to the sky, blowing a huge whirlwind as if a pale dragon rushing up from the abyss roared to show its majestic body. The ground around Ayaka turned into pieces in the blink of an eye and disappeared. The earth-shattering energy was full of destruction. The distant cracked ground was like experiencing a cannonball attack, becoming pitted and cratered. With Ayaka as the center, a huge arc crater was presented in front of everyone. Enough. Quickly stop. If you continue like this, the North Kai's planet will be destroyed. North Kai's body was crushed to the ground by the ki. His hands were clutching a few handfuls of fine grass with beads of sweat dripping down from his cheeks. The sisters were also exerting their full strength, struggling to resist Ayaka's terrifying ki. Ayaka sniffed and gathered her ki. After the ki dissipated, North Kai rose from the ground. He took out a cloth to wipe the sweat on his forehead. He looked as if he had palpitations, and he said seriously, "Just now, when you released the triple Kaioken, your power level actually reached more than 11 million. There are probably only a few people in the entire North area who can match you." Ayaka spread her hands, but there seems to be some flaw in the Kaioken. When the power level reaches more than 10 million, the increase in power is not so obvious. The difference between the 4 times Kaioken and the 3 times Kaioken does not seem to be very big. This is up to you to study. I honestly can't do anything about the degree of 10 million power levels or more. However, Ayaka, you can work in just a few months to reach more than 2.8 million, and you can exert an 11 million power level if you rely on Kaioken. Although it is a temporary achievement, this kind of strength can already be called legendary in the North area. North Kai spoke excitedly. If North area had someone to rival Frisia's existence so quickly, it would be easier to balance the evil Frisia clan. Launch and Lancy, let me see your strength. The sisters went through the instruction of North Kai, and their strength naturally soared. Now, they have a 250,000 power level. Ayaka quietly watched from the side, and she calculated, Son Goku came to North Kai when his power level was not very high. After North Kai's teaching, his power level was also multiplied several times. However, how could it haven't reached 250,000? Now was still the early stage of the Dragon Ball, and Launch and Lancy had been a bit of an anomaly. Although they didn't have too much mastery of Kaioken, Ayaka was clear that with their power level, their limit should be able to withstand about 10 times as much as Son Goku Kaioken. That would still be below 10 million and was achievable. However, 2.5 million power was, after all, already overwhelmed the body in the limit state. If they wanted to fight freely, making a low multiple of Kaioken was the most appropriate. As for the late Son Goku, who made 20 times Kaioken, she wondered how he could carry it off. This was really tangled. Dragon Ball's early stage with a low power level plot was indeed a bit boring for Ayaka. Once she entered the Z chapter, the growth of power level was obviously excessive. If 1000 had been invincible in the early stage, it wasn't easy to survive without tens of millions in the middle and later stages. However, from 1000 to tens of millions, it took a few years to transition. Although it was said that the Z chapter was a few years after the end of the World Martial Arts Tournament, in fact, from 1,000 to tens of millions, it was only in days per unit. For Launch and Lancy, Ayaka knew that they were 2 souls, but she did not know the limit of 2 souls. Of course, it was also unclear whether their strength could catch up with the later stages' plot speed. Even Ayaka, in fact, was also a nervous in the heart. She wasn't Son Goku and a bunch of other protagonists. The good thing was that her physique was the existence of the Dragon Ball wish that could not be reached, which was her greatest reliance. So Ayaka's idea was to grow a little faster in the early stages. Well, a 250,000 power levels, it's awe-inspiring. North Kai nodded gratefully. Such power level was definitely considered cutting edge in the North area. But with a higher power level, you guys can't slack off. There are still many very scary and evil existences in the universe. Now it's almost time to tell you guys something. In our North area, there are 3 incomparably powerful guys. They are evil and brutal without a bit of humanity and full of villains. They used force to suppress those who resist them. They conquered countless planets into a human purgatory, and many planets have completely disappeared from the universe. Speaking of the 3 evil guys within his jurisdiction, North Kai's expression could not help but become grave. North Kai, give us an introduction to their situation, Ayaka said. North Kai nodded and said, their existence is a disaster for all the planets in the entire North area. However, their strength is so terrifying that no one can subdue them at all. Their strength is powerful. Even the weakest one of them is stronger than Ayaka after using Kaioken. Ayaka can barely fight with them, and it is impossible to defeat them. No way. Even Ayaka is not an opponent. Launch was astonished. With Ayaka's current 250,000 power level, if she wanted to destroy an ordinary planet, it was a simple matter. After using Kaioken, Ayaka would have a power level of more than 10 million, how could she still not match those North area evil existences? North Kai, the 3 evil guys you mentioned are Frisia, his father, and his brother, right? Ayaka confidently said, they are indeed terrifying. I am not their opponent yet, but I am confident that it will not take long to surpass them and then completely defeat them. Hey, you know Frisia and the others. They're the evilest thing in the North area and are their strongest clan. Frisia, his eldest brother, Cooler, and their father, King Cold, are these 3 B** stars. They make the entire North area misty. They have destroyed so many lives, I really want to wipe them out. North Kai thought of the planets that had been destroyed by them, and his face was not so good. The North area was so good before the 3 of them destroyed it. Frisia and the others are members of the strongest clan in the universe. They were born on the Winter Star. The clan members will be frozen from birth. The longer they are sealed, the greater their strength. They are also an ultra-rare warrior race in the universe, regardless of talent or potential. They are powerful. With their powerful strength, they have carried out bloody suppression on planets that dared to rebel against them and engaged in planet trading activities. They gathered a large number of subordinates and scientists under their hands. Ayaka agreed and said, Frisia has triple transformation ability, and the final form is much stronger than my strength after using Kaioken. His eldest brother, Cooler, and his father, Cold, are even more terrifying than Frisia. He always commanded the northern part of the North area. When I was about 10 years old, I was attacked by the Cooler's armored squadron and managed to escape. Cooler's armored squadron. That's a terrifying force. North Kai was surprised. Ayaka has already encountered them. It's not easy to escape from them at such a young age. North Kai introduced the situation of Cooler's armored squadron. The strength of each of their members was terrifying. Cooler's armored squadron, Frisia Force, and Cold Force were made by the Frisia clan, who snatched the world's strongest character. They were the evilest and most notorious forces in the North area, and it was also the source of panic in the entire universe. Because it is composed of all the powerhouses of the entire North area, the strength of these three forces members are all ranked in the forefront of the universe. They are extremely dangerous existences. Just pulling one out will make a planet doomsday. Well, I met Dor of the Cooler's Armored Squadron, which was considered weak among the Cooler's Armored Squadron members. However, he had a power level of 150,000, which almost destroyed Frisia Force. At that time, they were destroying planet Kano in the northern part. To cover the Kanosians' escape, I was almost killed by Dor. In fact, Ayaka had already been killed by Dor, but her body was special, so she survived. What? That guy, Dor, tried to kill Ayaka. It's unforgivable. Upon hearing that Ayaka was almost killed by Dor when she was a child, Lancey's face changed. She decided in her heart that the next time she had the chance to meet that Dor, she would beat him severely. North Kai stood aside, feeling the coldness emanating from Lancey. His body could not help but shiver. He could imagine that the future fate of this Cooler's armored squadron must be very miserable. However, he would, of course, be happy to see it. As long as the Frisia clan completely wiped out in the North area, the North area would return to stable and peaceful order. Ayaka said with a smile, that was a long time ago. I will find him sooner or later to clear up. Oh, let's put aside the matter of Cooler's armored squadron. Ayaka, you have learned Kaioken. I have a more profound move here, called the Spirit Bomb. But the requirements for learning the Spirit Bomb are too high. One must be as pure as a crystal in mind to learn it. Ayaka and Lancey, the killing intent in your hearts are too heavy. Even if you learn the Spirit Bomb, you won't be able to release it properly, so this move can only be learned by launch alone. Ayaka was stunned, then nodded. The good thing was certainly not for her to take up alone. She did not think too much about the Spirit Bomb. Moreover, through the transformation of the planet Namek Purunga, Launch's heart was transformed from a berserker to the most serene posture and was the calmest of the three. Although the Spirit Bomb release's power was very great, the preliminary preparation was too long, not suitable for Ayaka's combat style. The extra time would be better spent studying the fusion of the Kaioken and the Heavenly Thunder Shock Surprise. Spirit Bomb is a technique that gathers the vital energy of everything in the world, including grass, trees, animals, humans, the sky, and atmosphere, and releases it as energy. It is more powerful to fight when backed by a planet that provides huge energy. Theoretically, the greater the range of the help, the more powerful the resulting Spirit Bomb would be. Besides, it would not cause any burden to the body. Using the righteousness of the world to fight evil, this was the mystery of the Spirit Bomb. Although the Spirit Bomb researched by North Kai was magical, it required a lot of preliminary preparation and could not bring out the necessary agility in a high-intensity battle. It required several people to cover it to perform it. So, Ayaka completely gave up learning the Spirit Bomb. Relatively speaking, she was more good at relying on her power like a storm to give the enemy a thunderous blow. Lancey, you and Launch are two soul, so you can work together to cast the Spirit Bomb. If Launch learned the Spirit Bomb and then had Lancey as a support, the two together could bring out the Spirit Bomb's true power. The sun and the moon turned upside down, the white horse passed by, in the blink of an eye, another 4 months passed. Under the guidance of North Kai, Launch gradually mastered the essence of the Spirit Bomb. She was able to release a powerful Spirit Bomb. Lancey was also training on her own, and because of her associated physique with Launch, her strength had also grown considerably. Of course, the one with greater results was Ayaka. Although her power level hadn't increased much, she had completed the fusion of the Kaioken and the Heavenly Thunder Surprise Shock. Ayaka named the new technique Heavenly Fist. Heavenly Fist combined the characteristics of Kaioken and the Heavenly Thunder Surprise Shock. When used, the whole body was surrounded by vast lightning. It was not only able to hurt the enemy but also could protect her well. Its strength would be doubled according to the use of the Heavenly Fist. Ayaka continued to improve the Heavenly Fist. Therefore, the next step was to improve the upper limit of the Heavenly Fist's power and bring out its power in future super battles. Boom! Boom! A deafening roar came, and thick smoke filled the North Kai's planet as Launch controlled the bright point of light in her hand and pushed it forward, shattering the oversized bricks thrown by North Kai and sending an explosion through the air. Clap, clap, clap. North Kai clapped his hands together with a satisfied smile and said, "Launch, well done. I honestly didn't expect you to master the use of the spirit bomb so quickly. Even on a planet as small as North Kai's planet, you can gather mighty spirit bomb. On the planet you live on, there are many flora and fauna and a wide lake and ocean and atmosphere, and a huge star as a strong backing. When the time comes, your spirit bomb will be even more powerful and may destroy your world, so don't use the spirit bomb easily as the last resort." North Kai looked serious. The powerful might of the spirit bomb made him admonish avoid unnecessary casualties caused by excessive power repeatedly. "Don't worry, North Kai, I will use the spirit bomb properly." "Well, then I'm relieved. You have been here for 7 months, I have already taught you everything I know. Next, you have to figure it out on your own. There are countless masters in the universe. Besides the North area, there are also monsters of super high strength in other galaxy parts. Even the entire bank is just a drop of the universe." The three of them nodded in understanding. The universe was huge, and their eyes were no longer set in the small North area, but the vast and boundless universe, where there were countless guys with terrifying strength waiting for them. "North Kai, thanks for your guidance these times. We will keep becoming strong and then destroy all the evil guys who harm the universe so that the whole universe will know how strong we are." Upon hearing Ayaka said that, North Kai smiled gratefully. Next, Ayaka and the others flew up in the air and waved goodbye to North Kai. "North Kai, we are leaving. Take care. We will come back to visit you in the future." "Bubbles, Gregory, goodbye." "Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh," Bubbles hissed, waving his arms. Looking back at the tiny North Kai's planet, the three of them whooshed towards the Snake Road, bringing a whirlwind behind them as they flew off towards the other world. Looking at their distant backs, North Kai seemed to see 3 future powerhouses rising, and his mood instantly became pleasant. They all have astounding qualifications and potential. Soon, they will be able to become a strong person that will move the entire universe. It's finally time for North Area to shine. Frisia won't be able to be arrogant again. Ayaka flew on the Snake Road, and in a short while, she arrived in the other world and arrived at the palace of King Yema. The palace of King Yema was as busy as ever, with countless white air masses entered the hall in an orderly manner. The officer in charge of registering souls saw the girls and quickly recognized them, and went to them. "Miss Ayaka, you have returned from North Kai's planet so soon." Ayaka looked and found that this staff member was the one who had sent her to the Snake Road in the first place and nodded. "Well, we have already met North Kai, and now we have come to say goodbye to King Yema." "Ah, you're really great. You've actually met North Kai. Only King Yema has met North Kai in 100 million years. Wait a moment, I will take you to see King Yema right away." The staff politely led Ayaka and others into the hall. King Yema, who was judging the dead souls, saw Ayaka and others walk in, stopped the work in his hands. He was surprised. "Ayaka, how can you come back so quickly? Could it be that you have seen North Kai through the Snake Road?" Ayaka smiled and said, "Yes, we have received the guidance of North Kai, and it is time to return to Earth. Now, we come to say goodbye to you." King Yema heard it, and his face was full of shock. "You have passed through the Snake Road so quickly? Previously, it took me more than a year to go. Are you guys going back to Earth so soon? Why don't you stay here for a while longer? There are still a lot of things to deal with on Earth." King Yema nodded slightly and said very understandingly, "In that case, I will not keep you. I also have a lot of work to do. it is also tough to be the king of Otherworld. Ayaka smiled, then bid farewell to King Yema. She then returned to Earth together with the sisters by re-entering the secret room under the lookout. The northwestern part of the North area was a relatively peaceful region. In a northwestern solar system that emitted a ruddy glow, a Saiyan planet revolved around its sun. The planet was called Crux, a little larger than Earth, on which tens of thousands of species of life were nurtured. The vibrant planet Crux flourishes with the fires of a brilliant civilization. Cruxians looked very similar to Earthlings, and their average adult power level was around 300. There were a few strong people who have broken through to 1,000. Their better physical quality and the many accidental developments of the times had brought the development of technology. The Cruxians were mainly engaged in interstellar commerce and trade, with large transport ships carrying goods from different planets through the universe. They had a good reputation in the northwestern part. Ayaka, Launch, and Lancy had come to planet Crux for several days. For Ayaka, who was familiar with Dragon Ball's plot, it was time to get out of the Earth and enter the vastness of the universe. Of course, another aspect of this trip was to allow her two god servants to contact the universe further. In the future, it was an objective fact that Ayaka couldn't take them with her. Ayaka was used to fighting alone, especially when facing a strong enemy. It wasn't suitable to bring two trailing bottles. From what North Kai had revealed, it seemed that he wanted Launch and Lancy to be the scavengers of the North area, rather than being confined to one place on Earth alone. It's a waste to let such a powerful person be the guardian of a small planet. This was what North Kai said. Launch and Lancy should have more important things to do. The so-called scavenger, of course, was the person who cleaned up the garbage. However, the other meaning of scavenger was, with the same great strength to clean up those who violate the powerful existence order. North Kai was more interested in Ayaka. They then realized that Ayaka occasionally came to play a guest role. It was impossible to specialize her in the scavenger occupation. So the attention was turned to the two sisters, Launch and Lancy. The two sisters were not interested in the universe's evil existence and readily agreed to Launch and Lancy's vision. They clicked, so North Kai gave the two a new profession. Planet Crux was well developed, especially in terms of cosmic transportation, tourism, and entertainment. It was considered a major center of the entire North area. After touring several famous attractions on the planet, they were excited to stroll around the mall. There was a commercial building called the Cubic Tower on planet Crux. The building had a wide range of goods, known for its good quality and low prices, and was a long-established trade center on planet Crux, with a long history of heritage. When Ayaka looked at the time, there were still about 3 hours before sunset, so she said, "We'll split up for the next 3 hours and go to the places we're interested in. Take these Crux gold coins and buy something you like, and then we will meet here. You guys have fun. I'm going to sit in the nearby tea house for a while." Okay, the aliens of planet Crux people quite similar to the Earthlings, but I prefer their food here. I'll have a good taste later. Launch stuck out her tongue and licked her lips. You just know how to eat. I don't care about you, I have to continue to stroll. Lancy said, carrying the purchased clothes and continue to walk to other stores. What a colorful life. Watching them walk towards the places they were interested in, Ayaka said with emotion. Then she walked close to the tea house. The tea house was decorated with classical architecture, elegant with antiquity, giving a light and quiet atmosphere. Ayaka found a window seat and then looked out the window overlooking the passing pedestrians. The Cruxians were more similar to Earthlings in both looks and manners, so Ayaka had a perfect sense of integration with the Cruxians. However, planet Crux was located in the northwestern part of the North area, while Earth was located in the southern part of the North area. The two were more than 100,000 miles apart and were two planets that could not possibly be connected. She picked up a cup of tea, smelled the faint fragrance coming from the tea, and then took a small dip. She gazed idly at the pedestrians outside the window, and her heart became clear and relaxed all of a sudden. The gorgeous daylight irradiated the ground, and as time went on, the sunlight began to change from direct to oblique. The blinding sun took on a reddish evening hue. Oh, 3 hours have passed so quickly. The sun is going down. Well, it's time to go back and meet up with them. Stretching her back, Ayaka stood up to check out and then meet up with the girls. When she arrived at the meeting place, she realized she was early. Launch and Lancy had not yet come. Ayaka leaned against the marble pillar in front of the store and waited quietly. Soon, Launch came running towards her with a big bag. Phew, Ayaka is really early. Launch casually put the items into the capsule. Ayaka raised an eyebrow, said, "You really buy a lot." "Fortunately, I brought extra empty capsules, otherwise, you could not bring them back." "Oh, a lot of things here are not on Earth. We only come here once, so I need to buy a lot. By the way, has Lancy not come yet?" "Not yet. I don't know where she's gone again." "Huh, she is here." Ayaka's finger pointed to the side, and a young girl with long emerald green hair is running in the wind, shaking something in her hand. "Lancy, you're late. I thought we agreed on 3 hours. Can you be on time later? You guys just arrived." "I wasn't late for long. Let's not talk about that. Look at this." Lancy handed out a few blueback tickets and gave them to Ayaka. "What is this, a travel ticket?" Launch took the blue ticket and looked it up and down, only to see the words, "Planet Crux Deluxe Tour," printed on it. "What's with these tickets?" "This is not a trip to Planet Crux, it's an interstellar tour. A trip to the stars in a spaceship, but I had a hard time getting tickets." Lancy exaggeratedly gestured, thus illustrating how difficult it was for her to get these travel tickets. Interstellar travel? Ayaka was curious and looked at the travel tickets in her hand. Indeed, in the bottom right of the travel tickets written the destination of this trip, Planet Kufis. That's the third administrative planet of the Cruxians. It's quite a journey from Planet Crux to Planet Kufis. The two planets were so far apart that even with their most advanced spaceships, it would take several months to sail. It was a distance farther than Earth to planet Namek. Surrounded by sea on 3 sides and facing the trade center on one side, Planet Crux's spaceport was built on the sea based on the trade city. It was mainly used as a platform for passing trade ships. The clever Cruxians used it not only for trade but also for tourism, politics, and military purposes. Planet Crux was a large and beautiful planet, attracting many aliens to come and visit the planet. As the largest trade center of Planet Crux, the spaceport had to play its role. Therefore, new berths were created on both sides of the spaceport for tourist ships and special ships. The spaceport was divided into 3 parts, with a wide, flat steel floor in the middle. It was nearly 10,000 meters long and was reserved for trade spaceships. It was evenly divided into spaceship landing and takeoff locations and cargo transport channels. A high platform was held up with solid steel on both sides, on which a transparent login bay was set up, where different spaceships from outer planets were docked. After handing over the ship tickets to the inspection staff, Ayaka and the others walked up the boarding gate along the self-propelled passager. After entering the boarding bay through the gray-golden space hatch, different types of spaceships of various sizes appeared in front of them, and the spaceship to Kufis was also docked there. Relying on the spaceship ticket in her hand to find her living cabin and lobby seats, Ayaka began to survey the passengers in the cabin. In addition to the 3 of them, there were nearly 100 people in the cabin, more than half of them were Cruxians, similar in appearance to Earthlings. The rest were aliens, which were far different in appearance, with all kinds of strange looks. "That alien over there has dinosaur head, and the one next to him looks like a monster." Launch leaned over to Ayaka and whispered. "They are travelers from distant civilizations. There are countless strange creatures in the universe, it's not strange that civilizations have evolved. Some guys who look like barbarians may come from super advanced planets. You can't judge the degree of planetary civilization by the appearance of aliens. But these people are frail. None of them have a power level of 1000. Lancey turned sideways. Ayaka smiled. Power level of more than 1000 belongs to the medium-level planet. In the North area, there are not many planets like this. As Ayaka said, the North area didn't have a lot of warrior race. There were only a few dozen high-level planets in the North area and nearly 10,000 medium-level planet in addition to a few special races. However, the distribution to the entire North area was minimal. The universe was mainly ordinary planets, which had much high power level race to oppress planet with low power level. In particular, the strongest race was represented by Frisia. It's sporadic for people in the North area has more than 10,000 power levels. Well, not only the North area, I should say that the entire galaxy has very few people with a power level above 10,000. People with power level up to hundreds of thousands like you were enough to dominate and rule in some planetary areas. A powerful nation could easily destroy the planet. The unbalanced power level made a huge difference in the strength of each nation. As a result, resistance and suppression were born, and countless nations were mercilessly destroyed. Speaking of the knowledge in Ayaka's previous life, the galaxy was composed of 100 to 200 billion stars in the solar system, of which there were 2 billion stars similar to the Sun. However, due to the limitations of technology, humanity had not yet discovered extraterrestrial life. In contrast, the North area alone in the Dragon Ball world had tens of thousands of living planets in it, which seemed very prosperous. Ayaka understood very well the means of high-tech civilization and the strength of the strong. If they were underestimated, they would also turn over in the gutter. Moreover, they could also rely on those technologies to create powerful Cybermen. Even Ayaka did not dare to underestimate some of them. Passengers, the ship to planet Kufis is about to take off. Wish you all a pleasant journey. The announcement sounded in the cabin of the spaceship, prompting the spaceship was about to take off. Boom! Transparent energy was ejected from the outer part of the spaceship, which lifted the ship smoothly. The speed of the spaceship was so fast that it entered outer space in the blink of an eye. However, the people inside the spaceship did not feel the huge impact of the ship's acceleration, thanks to the powerful technological equipment. Outside the cabin, there was a blue-black starry sky. A green planet was gradually moving away. Then, the red star also began to become farther and smaller, slowly disappearing. Inside the living pod. The combination of work and rest is scientific. Moderate rest is also essential. After a short nap on the bed made of cashmere, Ayaka jumped up from the bed, a little, and then casually undid the clothes on her body and walked towards the bathroom. Soon, the sound of dripping water came from the bathroom. After a cold shower, Ayaka dried her body and picked up a hairdryer to dry her wet hair. Ayaka's age was 4 years older than Son Goku, and after 7 or 8 months of training in North Kai's planet, she was about to become an adult. Her body development gradually slowed down, and in recent months, it had not developed again. The figure had basically set. Since passing the growth period, Ayaka's hairstyle was no longer changing. Her flaxen hair, which was different from that of the purebred Saiyans, was naturally draped over her shoulders, tied slightly with a black ribbon. It hung in front of her chest with 2 handfuls of long hair flushed with a faint red at the tip. Several clusters of hair on her head were intertwined, scattered but did not look chaotic. Instead, it added some valiant heroism to her. It is said that the Saiyans are bloodthirsty and warlike people. Even female Saiyans grow up to be vulgar and muscular. I'm afraid I have to disagree. Look at me, my face is still beautiful. This can't be called vulgar. Am I not a purebred Saiyan? Ayaka was, of course, a purebred Saiyan, but with some extra mysterious presence in her genes and in her soul. Judging from her background, she was just the offspring of 2 low-level warrior Saiyans. Immortality coupled with the gift of ageless youth from the former Judge Liu made Ayaka maintain such a youthful posture for an infinite number of years to come, which was countless people's envy. Ayaka enjoyed the result so much that her mood seemed extraordinarily relaxed, and her mouth hummed a minor tune. Soon, the spaceship went about a third of the journey in the universe. One day, Ayaka and the sisters were having fun in the spaceship's entertainment area. Suddenly, a violent shaking occurred in the spaceship. The music and lights came to a screeching halt, and the whole room was plunged into an eerie darkness. What's going on? How did it become dark all of a sudden? And this vibration, is the spaceship malfunctioning? For unknown reasons, the ship shook violently, and the aisles outside were already swarming with people. Most of the passengers came out of the living cabin after the accident. They flocked to the relatively spacious hall, making the corridor appear congested all of a sudden. They panicked, shouted, and trotted toward the hall. The red warning lights were flashing and buzzing, and the scene was taut. At that moment, the announcement in the corridor blared. Passengers, please do not panic. Just now, the ship has hit an asteroid that entered the course by mistake. The asteroid has been destroyed, but the ship also suffered a certain degree of damage. To ensure passenger safety, this voyage will be temporarily cancelled and go to the nearby docking port for repair, and then take off again after the ship is fully repaired, for which we are sorry for the inconvenience caused. The radio played 3 times in a row, the panic crowd then gradually quieted down. It's a pity that a good tour was ruined. It's impossible to repair this spaceship without a month. The Cruxians would settle the trip passengers, but Ayaka was not going to stay on this small repair station for a month. It was a shame to have a good trip messed up, but it wasn't worth making Ayaka spend a month waiting. Ayaka left the space repair station and used instant transmission to take the sisters to a distant planet. Although it belonged to the northwestern part of the North area, it was extremely far away from planet Crux and Kufis. It was desolate and dry, not easy for life to survive, and it was a barren planet. Surrounded by jagged and cracked rocks, under the sunlight, from the rock crevices emerged a wisp of green smoke. There was also a strong smell of sulfur. This planet is not comfortable to stay, it is better to leave early. Ayaka nodded lightly, took their hands, and prepared to launch the instant transmission. Ayaka suddenly turned her gaze to the sky. What's wrong? Seeing this, Lancy also looked towards the sky. High in the distant sky, 2 tiny light points were rapidly cutting through the sky, trailing 2 long tails. Those 2 points of light were actually still outside the planet's atmosphere, grazing the planet, and had no intention of entering it. Oh, those 2 are small spaceships, right? Launch's eyesight, like Lancy's, could see things high in the distant sky. Those 2 dots of light were precisely the spaceships flying in the universe. Only those 2 spaceships were really small, overall spherical, and only one adult could lie inside. Ayaka's eyes could not help but narrow. The sisters didn't know the origin of the 2 spaceships, but Ayaka recognized. That was exactly Frisia's subordinates on a mission in a spaceship, and Ayaka once owned one. However, this was the northwestern part of the North area, far from Frisia's rule of the southern part of the North area. There was no reason for Frisia's subordinates to come here. In this case, the people were either assigned by Frisia to carry out a special mission or carry out a private operation without Frisia's knowledge. However, in any case, Ayaka felt that she had to follow up to see. Perhaps there would be some unexpected gains. With the people in the spaceships completely unaware of the situation, Ayaka and the girls trailed all the way. The spaceships passed countless planets along the way, all without the intention of stopping. Soon, Ayaka's patience was gradually consumed. Damn it! It hasn't arrived at the destination yet. Where are these 2 spaceships going? It's not a good idea to keep following them like this. Why don't we intercept them and ask them directly? Ayaka thought in her mind and then gathered a key wave in her hand. She threw 2 waves of energy towards the spaceships from afar. The light blue energy wave cut through the universe and hit the spaceships. There was a violent vibration. The spherical spaceships attacked by energy waves suddenly deviated from the course, both towards a large purple planet. Ayaka's attack just now had caused damage to the interior of the spaceships, preventing them from exploding. However, they could no longer fly normally. So, Ayaka took the lead and went directly into the big purple planet and waited for the spaceships to land. It didn't take long for 2 brightly glowing fireballs to fall from outer space as expected. Accompanied by a whining roar as they passed through the atmosphere, the 2 fireballs smashed heavily into the ground. Boom! Boom! The 2 huge sounds shaking the sky, and the powerful impact makes the ground shake. A large area of mud and sand rolled through the thick smoke spread from the point of impact and soon obscured a large part of the sky. Ayaka and others were standing not far from the point of impact. When the mud and sand rolled through the sand and dust came, it magically stopped at a distance of 1 meter, forming a small spherical wind wall area around Ayaka. Ha! Amazing, your use of ki has been extremely subtle. Launch finger pointed a meter away from the sand and dust. In the gap between the sand and the wind wall, there was a subtle layer of ki surging, blocking the sand and dust firmly out. Ayaka smiled blandly and puffed out her chest, accepting the compliment with peace of mind. That's right. We've put in a lot of hard work to control the ki, and this little trick is certainly handy and effortless. When the mud and smoke began to dissipate, the hazy vision regained its brightness. 2 huge impact craters appeared ahead. There was a spherical spaceship in the center of the impact crater, already half sunk into the mud and sand. The surface of the spaceship was rough and unpleasant, some parts had become charred black. The smoke was coming out from time to time. Ayaka approached the impact crater and gazed at the 2 spaceships. Squeak! The spaceships vibrated a few times, and the hatch slowly opened. 2 figures, one tall and one short, came out of the spaceships. They looked around and were careful and alert. Surprisingly, it's them. Ayaka saw the people who came out of the spaceships, and a trace of consternation flashed in her eyes, then she frowned. They should be on a mission under Frisia. Why did they come to the northwestern part? The tall and short 2 people were wearing the Frisia forces battle armor. The taller figure was about 2 meters tall, and the smaller one was slightly taller than Ayaka. Surprisingly, it was Vegeta and Nappa. Vegeta and Nappa's official debut should be in 10 years after the Dragon Ball Z chapter. Ayaka wasn't clear about their previous experience. In the original story, it was only mentioned that Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz, 3 Saiyans, had been working under Frisia, eliminating various civilizations and then selling planets at high prices. The business was quite a bold one. At this time, they saw Vegeta and Nappa, but not Raditz. On second thought, she seemed to have some understanding. Raditz's strength is too weak. Understandably, Vegeta didn't bring him around. If his strength did not exceed 1,000 later, Vegeta did not care to carry out the task with him. Even though the Saiyans in the universe have been incredibly rare, but Vegeta's pride still did not allow him to be with the weak. Ayaka snorted, disapproving of Vegeta's unknown arrogance. In the end, Ayaka was also of a low-class warrior origin. No doubt she was the child of a low-income family. When she encountered a royal family like Vegeta, she was somewhat upset. Ayaka didn't feel good about Vegeta. However, there weren't many evil thoughts. Vegeta completely inherited the Saiyan arrogance and cold, the typical warrior race. He had a strong sense of pride to keep, not bothering to integrate into the community. Even now that he had become a subordinate of Frisia, the only one he could barely get along with was Nappa, who was also a Saiyan. Well, that's the Saiyan prince you said before, Ayaka. His name is Vegeta. He has a power level of 8,000 and was born with higher potential than you. Lancey said with a grimace. They had long known a lot about the Saiyans from Ayaka, including the Saiyan Prince Vegeta. However, Vegeta's current strength made her disdainful. As expected, the real one wasn't as good as the one in the story. Do not underestimate Vegeta. As the Saiyan Prince, he undoubtedly has terrifying potential. This potential is rare in the history of the Saiyans. The future strength of a warrior like him will certainly be terrifying. Only our roots are more solid than his, one step ahead of him. Ayaka knew clearly about Vegeta's terrifying potential, which was a cut above Son Goku. In the original story, Son Goku always pressed Vegeta, and the reason was the role of the main character's aura. The other reason was Son Goku's opportunity and effort, which seemed to be a little luckier than Vegeta every time. Now, they were just a small sapling, and the strength wasn't significant. They just needed the right time to be triggered, like a big tree, and then their strength would soar and constantly break through the limits. However, no matter what, Vegeta's current strength was still weak, not enough to cause Ayaka too much concern. Even in the future, she was confident that Vegeta would never surpass her. Vegeta may really have the potential ability to say, but that bald won't work. When he was 20 or 30 years old, he might only have more than 1,000 power levels, far from the other. Lancy surveyed. Her gaze was slightly condensed, trying to see through Vegeta. However, after all, she didn't know the future plot like Ayaka and only vaguely saw that Vegeta still had hope for improvement. Nappa, on the other hand, didn't seem to have much of a future. In the impact crater, Vegeta gently flicked away the ashes on his body. His face cold and ruthless, his eyes emitting a cold light. The big man Nappa moved his arms and legs, floating close to Vegeta, one hand touching his head. Vegeta, this does not seem to be the planet we are going. Did the spaceships malfunction? Those scientists developed really unreliable spaceships. Humph. Vegeta snorted discontentedly. Nappa saw the situation and hurriedly stopped laughing, not to provoke the other side of the displeasure. Idiot, it's not the problem of the spaceships. It is that someone deliberately destroyed the spaceships. Vegeta pointed to the scorched area on the ship. Obviously, the burns caused by the energy waves had almost burned through the outer protective shield. Vegeta's face was cold, and his voice contained infinite anger. The original handsome face was somewhat distorted. His hands clenched his fists and made a crackling sound. Damn, who is messing up with this prince? Let me know, and I will not spare that person. The spaceship material was a new material developed only in recent years, which was incredibly hard. It was even impossible for Nappa to use all his strength to break through the spaceship's outer wall protection. At the moment, the spaceship was actually covered with such a large hole. Nappa, standing on the side, did not dare to approach Vegeta easily. At this time, Vegeta was a powder barrel. Who touched the fire would get burned, and Nappa did not want to make fun of himself. Saiyans, as Frisia's subordinates, initially enjoyed the very high treatment. However, since Frisia jealous of the legendary Super Saiyans, hence he destroyed planet Vegeta. Saiyan's status in Frisia force had fallen. Now, even some slightly weaker races dare to blatantly mock them, saying they were the remnants of the lost home planet. How could the proud Prince Vegeta endure this? So, taking advantage of the time to recuperate, Vegeta and Nappa moved away from the Frisia forces to the distant northwestern part, seeking a strength breakthrough. However, they didn't expect their spaceship to be destroyed by Ayaka halfway. Vegeta spat out a mouthful of saliva and looked around. The sight was obscured by the rumbling mud and sand and ordered, Nappa, look around. Those guys should be nearby. Okay. Let me find out those guys. I'll make sure they have a good time. Nappa smiled excitedly. His hands clasped together and made a crackling sound, then levitated and floated upwards. Soon, Nappa saw the three girls standing at the edge of the impact crater and shouted to Vegeta, Vegeta, there really are people, three cute little girls. The corners of Vegeta's mouth turned up with a cruel sneer, and his body levitated up to Nappa's side. He floated above Ayaka and the others. It was these three little girls who destroyed the spaceship. Oh, Nappa, it's your turn to show. Teach them a good lesson, and don't be lenient just because they are girls. Vegeta coldly said. Although the three girls look outstanding, especially the middle one was a little taller and was a rare beauty, Vegeta didn't have any mercy. No need for you to command, I know what to do. Nappa landed on the ground, shaking his neck. His tongue licked his lips and then pressed the scouter worn in the corner of his eye, the scouter beeping, showing the power level of 3. Huh, Vegeta, these three pussies' power level is only 5, simply pathetic. Let Lord Nappa treat them well. Nappa shouted with wild laughter and then waved his fist to attack Ayaka and others. Only 5 power levels. No, they hide the strength. Vegeta was shocked and hurriedly shouted, idiot, that's not their real power. They are definitely hiding their strength. Unfortunately, Vegeta reminded him late. Although Nappa heard Vegeta's reminder in time, he was not a match for the three. Bang! Nappa felt a sharp pain from all over his body, and his body had been struck far out by a huge force, clattering in the ground, cut a deep gully. What? Vegeta was horrified. He felt a blur before his eyes, and Nappa had been thrown out. The action is too fast, even I couldn't see. At the end, who struck? Vegeta's face was gloomy, and his gaze swept over the three girls. He was trying to determine which one was the one who had just struck, but the three girls were standing casually in front of him, and he did not feel any change in their ki. Damn, these three people are so scary. The strength is so terrifying. Vegeta's face sunk. Even if he was proud of his talent, he had to admit that he could not see through the three people in front of him. Ah! Who attacked this lord? Show yourself to this lord. Nappa got up in a rage. His eyes were full of blood, and his battle armor was covered with cracks. Wiping away the blood at the corner of his mouth, Nappa's heart flashed a chill. The blow just now made him feel the breath of death, intense pain and fear hit the brain. Vegeta was dissatisfied with the performance of Nappa, who lost his mind. So, he reprimanded, calm down. These three people are not a generalist, you are not their opponent. Get over here. Feeling the anger in Vegeta's words, Nappa's heart was cold. He regained his senses and obediently leaned towards Vegeta. However, he was a bit apprehensive, not knowing whether he was worried about angering Vegeta or being afraid of Ayaka and the others. Vegeta vigilantly reviewed the surrounding, and his attention firmly locked not far from the three girls. These three people made him deeply scared. Ayaka stood calmly. With a smile on her face, she had a leisurely performance and did not make any response to Vegeta's vigilance. Vegeta certainly had endless potential, but it was not worth Ayaka's special attention. Vegeta's brow tightened, and his heart certainly felt angry at Ayaka and others' ignorance, but he did not act rashly. Long experience in battle told him that it would certainly bring horrible results if he made the slightest move. This was intuition, and this intuition made him very depressed. Even under the terror of Frieza, Vegeta retained the pride of the Saiyan prince, and his pride didn't allow him to be ignored. Vegeta, what should we do? They seem to be very strong. Nappa leaned down and asked in a whisper. Vegeta grunted, faintly swept Nappa a glance. Nappa was particularly dissatisfied with the performance of cowardice. His heart cackled in panic, I am not afraid of them, it is better to be careful. Haha, how can the data measured by Scouter be wrong? Humph, they should have a way to hide their strength. It is not surprising that it cannot measure their power level. Well, you are right. Indeed, we should be careful. Though they have ignited my anger, it is not so simple to extinguish them. Vegeta emitted an evil aura. His tone was cold and chilly, making Nappa feel a chill. The big guy is useless. Although he annoys people, the pointy-haired guy still has some power. So, why don't you give him to me, and I'll take care of him. Lancey skimmed Vegeta and said to Ayaka. Just now, Nappa was dispatched by her. Nappa's strength of just over 1,000 points was solved in one go, completely insufficient with her movement. So her target was Vegeta. The spiky-haired guy's strength was still passable. If she paid attention to the proportion, she could keep moving. Hey, I'll leave Vegeta to you. Please don't kill him. Vegeta will be of some use later. Just beat him. Ayaka smiled and said horrible words. She then backed up a few steps with launch, handing the field to Lancey. Leave it to me. I have a measure of things and will not play him badly. Hey, spiky-haired one, don't fall so easily. Vegeta's face was blue. His hands were clenched in fists and his anger was at its peak. Damn, woman. How dare you insult me like that? Congratulations, you've pissed off this prince. I'll make you regret saying what you just said. Vegeta eyes like a fierce beast, cruel, deadly stare at Lancey. Feeling Vegeta's anger, Nappa's body took the initiative to retreat backwards. All of a sudden only Vegeta and Lancey left in the middle against each other. Fine wind blowing the ground, raising a curtain of sand and dust. Woman, now it's too late to regret. Vegeta's gaze was like a wolf through the fierce cruelty. His cold and bloody eyes had no trace of emotion, like a beast staring at its prey and looking closely at Lancey. Ha! Vegeta lightly shouted. His whole body instantly disappeared from the spot, and his figure could not be captured in all parts of the world. Lancey didn't move and stand there as if deliberately waiting for Vegeta's attack. Suddenly, her eyes shine. Her slender hand raised, unmistakably catched the fist of Vegeta appeared out of thin air. Buzz! The violent fist power hit the whirlwind, blowing up Lancey's green hair. Vegeta saw his attacks did not work and sneered. He quickly broke away from Lancey's counterattack range, changed the angle, and relaunched the attack. The two figures continued to tangle, from the ground to the sky and from the sky to the ground. Everywhere was filled with vibration and roar caused by the battle, loud noise, and explosions. Vegeta's body was like an arrow, weaving quickly. Each seemingly light attack but contains a powerful and suffocating power. Go to hell. A light blue ki wave launched from Vegeta's hands towards Lancey. Her eyes flashed with frenzy, and Lancey waved her hand to remove the energy contained in the ki wave. A huge whirlwind of energy immediately wrapped her entire person. Boom boom boom. The thick energy whirlwind flew out, and the overflowing ki wave stirred the ground. Sand and gravel debris flew all over the sky, and the ki wave rolled up the sand debris, spreading out in all directions layer by layer. A cluster of energy waves swept over Nappa's head. The rushing roar and the momentum were like a rainbow. It was so frightening that Nappa quickly leaned over and dodged, so close. I almost got hit. I have to get a little further away, or I'll get hurt by mistake. The figure popped far away. Wiping away the cold sweat on his forehead, Nappa looked around but found that he could not see Vegeta and the mysterious girl fighting. He couldn't help but envy Vegeta as the Saiyan prince, unknowingly has been this powerful. He really makes people aspire. However, if that woman can fight Vegeta, she also a terribly powerful role. If I can have this kind of strength. Then. Ayaka's eyes kept turning. Each turn, she saw Vegeta's trajectory accurately. The corners of her mouth slightly outlined a charming arc, although Vegeta's movement speed is breakneck, sensitive and swift at first glance to accelerate ki, he consumes excess ki uselessly. Some of the gains are not worth the losses. The gap in strength is there, not so simple to cross. Sometimes, when the gap was too big, it didn't need a flashy move. A blunt bronze weapon, as usual, had deadly power. Feeling the effect of his high-speed attack was very little, Vegeta's heart could not help but sink, the opponent is really not a panacea. If it goes on for a long time, it is bound to be bad for me. Vegeta's thoughts turn rapidly. The next moment, he stopped on a steep rock cliff. He vigilantly reviewed the surrounding area, thinking of ways to win. At this time, Nappa's strength is not useful. The other side still has 2 people watching, it is difficult to win. Damn, where these 3 women emerged from. The strength is so strong. I'm afraid that even Frisia's men won't be able to match them. Vegeta became more and more difficult to see a few points. His cold cheeks seemed to condense into frost, and his body emitted a thick killing gas. I can't be slacking off. There was a young girl's voice in his ear, gentle and moving. However, it sounded like the devil. Vegeta turned back in astonishment, and his heart shook. The young girl had actually come to his side without a sound. Boom boom. A powerful force attacked his body, and Vegeta shot out like a rocket, smashing the rocks encountered along the way, and finally buried by the collapsed rocks. Vegeta. Nappa saw Vegeta lost and shouted in alarm. His large body didn't dare to take a step closer. Not to mention how risky it was to be close to the battlefield, it was enough for him to suffer from watching the 2 leaves on the side. If he rashly went forward, the first to suffer an attack was him. Vegeta shouted the pile of rocks on the body, bombing away. The rampant ki disperses the surrounding sand, dust, stone chips, causing a massive crater in the ground. Vegeta stood in the center of the crater, his entire body was a bit of a mess. His cold face was bloodied, and his shoulder shield was missing a piece from Lancey's fierce attack, which broke Vegeta's defense and left a shadow in his heart. His mouth gasped for air, and when he moved his arm, a tingling sensation came from the arm, the strength of Lancey completely out of Vegeta's expectation. Biting the tip of his tongue, Vegeta calmed down. It was undeniable that Lancey was the first one he encountered, in addition to Frisia's men, to suppress his existence for a long time completely. From a young age, Vegeta was recognized as the hope of the Saiyan. Since he could remember, he had to endure various cruel battle tests to become an outstanding warrior early in the Saiyan's history. Even after becoming Frisia's subordinates and planet Vegeta was destroyed, only a few people could defeat him in battle. Vegeta's self-confidence was thus inflated, but today's battle showed him that he might not be so powerful. Is this the Prince of the Saiyans? Vegeta, you disappoint me a little. The young girl's voice came into the ears. Vegeta shuddered, and his eyes widened a circle. He saw the woman with long flaxen hair among the 3 young girls shaking her head, looking disappointed. As if stabbed into the pain, Vegeta's face grim. He clenched his teeth and hissed like a beast, you know the Saiyans. How could I, Vegeta, be so easily defeated? Angry? The so-called pride of a prince is just a yoke you imposed on yourself. Is the Prince of the Saiyans really that proud? Not really. Every strong man's pride is essential, but excessive pride will only hinder you. Without letting go of the unnecessary pride in your body, you will never know what it is to be truly strong. Ayaka said blandly. Whether the strong was arrogant, in the previous life, Ayaka watched an anime called Fate/Zero, there was a special description of the strong man with his pride, which was not wrong. However, if this pride blocked his communication with others, creating a closed space that belongs only to himself, this pride would only block him. People should not live their lives for pride. Pride was a character, but not everything. For Ayaka, it's not worth mentioning that Vegeta's great pride that was just self-deceiving self-importance. The powerful man would not be proud, much less arrogant and ignorant, and would never think that he had been unmatched. Vegeta roared in anger. The veins on his head were exposed as he stared hard at Ayaka. He then gritted his teeth to attack Lancey. Lancey's strength was far above Vegeta. Even if she didn't take it seriously, she was not something he could overcome. Not to mention that Lancey also took Vegeta as a warm-up object, responding to Vegeta's attack like a cat playing with a mouse. Rumbling explosions continued to sound. The ground trembled violently up and down. The storm rolled up, the sand and dust filled the surrounding area, and the world was a blur that could not be seen. The scene was huge, just like the end of the world. Vegeta attacked madly, and countless waves of ki shuttle in the sand and dust. The huge dust storm and the ground were blown out from time to time. Lancey's body lightly flickering in the sky, moving lightning fast to avoid the ki wave. Her body swish suddenly came to Vegeta's front. At this time, Vegeta's eyes were covered with blood. His whole body turned into a semi-mad state. Lancey's palm hit Vegeta, and then a pale golden light shone up in the palm of her hand. Vegeta's heart trembled. He dodged in a panic, but it was too late. Boom! The sky rose a huge mushroom cloud, and a bright orange light illuminated the sky. Powerful energy accompanied by a shocking and complete roar spread out in all directions. The clouds in the air were vaporized and disappeared in an instant. If you reach out into the cosmic space, you could clearly see a huge flare rising from the planet. Vegeta. Nappa raised his arms across his body to resist the raging energy. He waited until the energy wave gradually weakened, then Nappa bumped and flew to the center of the explosion. At the center of the explosion, a huge crater hundreds of meters deep and several kilometers wide appeared. The lava melted by the powerful energy flowed continuously, with greenish smoke rising from it and a smell of sulfur and iron chips. Nappa's eyes wide open, looking at the hundreds of meters deep crater. His eyes flashed with deep fear, and his heart of the unease is firm. Vegeta already. Nappa could not believe it. However, the enormous energy just now made him recognize that Vegeta definitely could not survive from the previous big explosion. The thought that Vegeta might have been dead made Nappa's eyes could not help but be flooded with the red light. The Saiyan prince, who was incredibly powerful in his mind, was killed. Nappa's whole body trembled. "Hey, big guy, how old are you? Why are you crying?" Ayaka and Launch slowly landed. When Nappa saw Ayaka and Launch, his heart trembled violently, and a great fear swept over him. Suddenly, not knowing where the courage came from, he yelled, I'll fight with you." After yelling, he rushed towards Ayaka and the girls, knowing that he was no match for them. Nappa was going to fight for his life. "What roar? It is too nonchalant." Ayaka grimaced in dissatisfaction. She casually grabbed Nappa and then threw far away. Boom! Nappa's entire body was stuck upside down in the ground. You. Nappa struggled and jumped out, trembling all over as he looked at Ayaka. He suddenly realized sadly that not only Vegeta, he might also have to account for here. Thinking of this, he stood still, not moving. Ayaka looked at Nappa in amusement. She just thought that this guy was dumb and had an IQ problem. The original Nappa had been following Vegeta. He obeyed Vegeta's instructions and never went beyond half a step, taking away Vegeta's strength and intimidation. Nappa's IQ had to be scrutinized. "No need to look at it. Vegeta is not dead," she kindly reminded. Nappa unbelievingly widened his eyes. Just now, the explosion so strong, how could Vegeta survive? Silly. Look there. Ayaka pointed to a certain place high in the sky. Nappa looked up and saw a cluster of figures in a place extremely far from the ground. It was actually Lancey carrying Vegeta flying in the sky. Landed on the ground, she randomly threw Vegeta. Lancey clapped her palms back to Ayaka. It was not enjoyable, that guy could not stand to fight. He was defeated with only a few moves. Ayaka was happy. Vegeta had more than 8,000 power levels barely. How could he be the opponent of 250,000 strong Lancey? He had fallen when she could not even warm up. Nappa was rolling and crawling to Vegeta's side. At this time, Vegeta had passed out, and his body too covered with wounds. The battle armor had been basically scrapped. If he hadn't been raised high in the air by Lancey at the moment of the explosion, Vegeta would have been turned into dust. Nappa carried Vegeta with a complex face to look at Ayaka and others. If Ayaka wanted their lives at this time, Nappa was simply unable to resist. I see you guys leave Frisia's territory with little purpose. This time, I'll let you go, take care of yourselves. Figure out how to leave. Let's go. Ayaka said, pulling up the sisters' hands, ready to launch the instant transmission to leave. Those monsters are finally leaving. Nappa thought Ayaka and the girls were about to leave and was sighing with relief. By the way, Big Head, you're not too bad. You just have a shortcoming heart. Don't get killed by your own people. Ayaka thought of Nappa finally invaded the Earth but died in the hands of Vegeta. After a reminder, she then swished and disappeared in place. Nappa suddenly turned around and was startled by Ayaka's sentence. His heart was shocked when he picked up Vegeta and flew towards the spaceship. Although the ship was damaged, it was better than nothing. Perhaps, it could still communicate with the outside world. After several days, Vegeta woke up. Only the thought that he was easily defeated by the girl with long emerald hair, Vegeta's face turned gloomy. For several days in a row, Nappa was in Vegeta's shadow. I'm not strong enough. Vegeta and Nappa were aware of this. Their strength could only be flaunted in ordinary planets. Once they encountered the real strong people, they would not even have a chance to escape. This time they were lucky that the girls did not bother to kill them, but in the future, who could guarantee that they would be able to live every time? Nappa, when the rescuers come. Let's replace the ship and go to other planets. Nappa nodded in silence. Ayaka and others left the big purple planet with instant transmission and skipped many star systems. They moved from the northwestern part of the north area towards the eastern and finally landed on a lime green planet. This planet had a tiny land area, and most of it is covered by glacial seas. It was planet Faroko where Ayaba lived as a child. The destination of this trip was located in the east of planet Yardrat. Since she promised North Kai to let Launch and Lancey inspect the north area, Ayaka naturally felt that the sisters should have more life-saving techniques. There were countless strong people in the universe. Although they were already considered high-level combatants in the north area, they should go to planet Yardrat just in case. There were countless magical techniques on planet Yardrat, and there were many suitable for the sisters. Ayaka's instant transmission was a secret technique. Even if she wanted to teach them, she could not. So, she got the idea of Yadrat's instant transmission, which was not as perfect as Ayaka's, but it was no problem for saving their lives. To go to planet Yardrat, Ayaka stopped by planet Faroko. As a young child living here, planet Faroko was never lower than Earth in Ayaka's heart. Is this the planet where you lived as a child? The environment is really nice. Lancey curiously surveyed the surrounding. The beautiful natural environment on planet Faroko was definitely a wonder. This planet has a good environment. The beings surviving on it are not high in power level and intelligence and cannot cause great damage. Lancey sensed that there was no single power level higher than 500 on the whole planet, and there were no brilliant primate creatures. Planet Faroko belonged to the Beast Planet. The natural environment was well preserved. Ayaka and others were here for a short time to check where she used to live and train, but a beast had already occupied the cave where she used to live. After wandering around for a while nostalgically, Ayaka launched instant transmission and left. Located in the eastern part of planet Yardart, the slope was full of weeds. The light wind bent the fine grass and spread out layers of wave-like patterns. On the rock shelf at the edge of the slope, 3 young girls appeared out of nowhere. One of them had long flaxen hair. She closed her eyes to feel the surroundings while the other 2 girls were curiously looking into the distance. The northern hemisphere of planet Yardart. We're very close to the destination. Ayaka opened her eyes and said. She had just felt and found that she and the others were located in the northern hemisphere of planet Yardart, just a few hundred kilometers away from the Great Hall where the Elders lived. Let's set off here. The Elders' Hall is located in the southeast. It will take a little time to get there. Ayaka pointed a finger in a direction. The three of them levitated up and flew in the direction of the Elders' Hall. With the strength of their body, they flew as fast as they could. With a swoosh, 3 bright lines erupted in the sky, and they were gone in an instant. To allow the sisters to learn the strange techniques of planet Yardart, it was necessary to go through the Elders' approval. Ayaka also wanted to take this opportunity to visit Uncle Podia's family and Pamikuka, who taught her martial arts. The three flew fast, flying over a mountain range and a forest, then through the jungle. In the blink of an eye, the unique and peculiar architecture of planet Yardart came into view. Landing on top of a tall building and looking down, there was an incomparably familiar building filled with memories overlapping with her mind. This was the town she had lived in. Ayaka landed from a high place and said to Launch and Lancy beside her, "Up ahead is Uncle Podia's house. Let's go over and take a look." With that, she ran towards a building. Launch and Lancy looked at each other and followed closely behind. Tom Tom. There was a knock on the door, and Podia, who was resting on a recliner after lunch, heard the knock and got up reluctantly, muttering about opening the door. It was the best time to rest after a good meal, and the leisurely Yadratians liked to relax at this time. The knock at the door was a disturbance. Podia wanted to see which bastard was knocking at his door at this time, not knowing his habits. It must be that kid, Cyrus, again. He's too young to train properly and cause trouble all the time. Let me teach him a lesson. Cyrus was Podia's nephew. Podia always had a hatred for him whenever he saw him. When he opened the door, Podia froze. The person standing at the door was not the expected Cyrus, but 3 beautiful but unfamiliar girls. No. One of them looked as if she was very familiar. "Who are you 3 looking for here?" Podia asked as he swept his eyes in surprise. Uncle Podia didn't recognize her, something Ayaka didn't find surprising. It had been almost 8 years since she had left planet Yardrat. 8 years had caused Ayaka to change radically, not only in strength, but Ayaka's body had also changed significantly. There was not much left of her childhood image, so it was no wonder that Podia did not recognize her at a glance. The lifespan of the Yadratians was even longer than that of Earthlings. Looking at Uncle Podia, who had hardly changed at all, Ayaka said with a smile on her face, "Uncle Podia, don't you recognize me?" Podia listened and froze. Was this young girl the originally little Ayaka? The image in his memory slowly coincided with the young girl in front of him. Yes, it was indeed Ayaka. She had grown so big. Ah, so it is Ayaka. I can't believe how much you've changed. I didn't recognize you. Come in and sit down. Podia said with surprise. He invited Ayaka and the girls into the living room with enthusiasm. After cleaning up a bit, Podia brought out the drinks and fruits and put them on the table. Picking up a green fruit and bit into it, Ayaka looked at Podia's slightly blessed body and laughed. Uncle Podia is living quite leisurely. His power level has not increased much, but the body has become more magnificent. Podia rubbed his head with embarrassment and laughed. Uncle is not as spirited as you young people. You rarely come back for a while, Uncle should treat you well. Oh, Ayaka, these 2 ladies are your companions. They're really young, their ki is so powerful. Podia stared up in horror. His expression was somewhat condensed. From the body of Launch and Lancy, he felt compelling energy. What a terrifying power. Podia fixed his mind and then said with a smile on his face. Although the ki on the sisters made him feel terrified, it could be said that this was a powerful ki that he had never felt before. However, his keen senses also perceived that the ki on them was very calm, without any aggression. Podia's strength was limited. Although he could perceive the ki on the girls, he could not perceive the energy of Ayaka. The strength of Ayaka really surpassed that of Podia, and the degree of introversion was deeper. After talking with Uncle Podia for a while, Ayaka said the purpose of her visit to planet Yardrat. Learning that the sisters had come for instant transmission and other secret techniques, Podia smiled bitterly and exclaimed, "Your strength has surpassed us so much that I don't even know what to say. I can't guess what kind of response the elders will give to a request like yours, but I think the elders will certainly consider all aspects. So, no matter what the outcome is, I hope you all can relax." Launch and Lancy nodded. After staying at Uncle Podia's house for a few hours, the sky had gradually darkened. Podia's family arranged a few rooms for Ayaka and the girls to live in, and they would stay here for a while. Before the sky was completely dark, Podia said to Ayaka, "While there is still time, Ayaka, you take the sisters to see the elders. After you see the elders, our dinner here is almost ready." Ayaka thought about it, so she nodded and called the sisters and took them to the Elder Hall. The Elders' Hall was located in the town center, not far from Podia's home. Ayaka had come here countless times in the early years, so she was already familiar with the way. The street was lined with stores, many of which were beginning to close. They were somewhat curious about the arrival of three strangers, but no one came up to talk to them except for the surprised looks they cast. Ayaka did not have to walk long before arriving at the lofty Elders' Hall. Looking at the glorious Elders' Hall, Launch and Lancy's eyes flashed with surprise. Of course, the Elders' Hall on planet Yardrat could not be compared to the Earth's Lookout, but it was much more magnificent than the place where the Grand Elders of planet Namek lived. After being stopped by the officer guarding the hall and then informed by the officer, Ayaka's group entered the hall and soon met several elders. When they saw the elders again, the elders surrounded Ayaka at once, constantly examining, nodding with admiring sounds coming out of their mouths. "It's little Ayaka. She's grown so big all of a sudden. I said a long time ago that little Ayaka would be lovely when she grows up, and look, I was right." A chubby elder's tone was full of complacency. "No. Little Ayaka is a beauty since she was a child. Who can't see that? There is no need for you to say that." A female elder disdainfully glared at the chubby elder. "If little Ayaka can be my granddaughter-in-law, that would be great. Unfortunately, my grandson hasn't grown and is getting farther and farther apart from little Ayaka. There's no hope." And Elders was sad by the fact that Ayaka could not be his granddaughter-in-law. "Yes. Who else is worthy of being with Ayaka other than our young Yardarshan? Such a beautiful girl is about to be snatched by another planet. I really can't let go. Look, guys, that outfit is just right. The two little girls around. TSK, Ayaka is really great. She's bringing two pretty girls with her when she goes out." The elders commented, and Ayaka's forehead dripped a few drops of sweat. What was going on? When did the elders become so feckless? It was not like this before. "Ayaka, these elders are really interesting," Launch whispered, and Ayaka's face instantly darkened a lot. Not long ago, she told the girls how majestic the elders of planet Yardrat were, asking them to be more respectful and polite to give them a good impression. Now, all of a sudden, they were hit in the face. It wasn't their faces that lost but hers. "Elders, where had your majesty gone? Stop!" Ayaka shouted, and a hint of vastness leaked out. The whole hall was filled with a swirling aura. Immediately, the elders were quiet, their eyes focused on Ayaka. Sure enough, our prophecy was not wrong. Little Ayaka really has the strength to save the universe from the crisis. After a long time, the Grand Elder said slyly, his tone revealing a certain sense of accomplishment. It was hard to get the elders to calm down. Ayaka felt the pressure and then said the purpose of her trip. After hearing this, the Grand Elder looked at the sisters. "Little Ayaka, you want them to learn instant transmission as well?" Ayaka nodded and said, well, the girls have to patrol the north area for North Kai, where the risks they may encounter are bound to be huge. So if they don't have a life-saving skill in their bodies, how dare I let them go? I hope the Grand Elder will allow them to learn instant transmission. The Grand Elder pondered for a moment, turned his gaze to the other elders, and said, since the two young girls are friends of Ayaka, they are friends of our Yadratians too. Since they are helping North Kai to patrol and ensure the peace of the north area, we have no reason to refuse. Ayaka heard that the Grand Elder did not refuse. Although it was expected, she still could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. The sisters looked at each other with a smile on his face. To learn instant transmission, it can take a long time. It would help if you found a place to stay for the time being. We will arrange for someone to teach them in the morning. Ayaka, do you need us to arrange a place for you to stay? One of the elders spoke up. Ayaka smiled and shook his head, no need to bother you guys. I already have a place to stay. So, let's do that for now. I'll bring them over tomorrow. Ayaka said goodbye to the elders and then left the elders' hall to go back to Podia's residence. A night passed, and early the next morning, Ayaka led the sisters to the elders' hall again. After one night, the elders had already found someone to teach them instant transmission and came to the hall dedicated to teaching the skill. Soon, a woman wearing the unique costume of Yadratian walked in. This woman was the instructor arranged by the elders. The woman was about 50 years old. Of course, the actual age must be greater than the appearance of age. Her hair was a little white, with a few crow's feet wrinkled at the edges of her eyes and a cane in her hand. Her body looked weak and feeble, but Ayaka and others did not dare to underestimate the woman. The elders could invite her to be the instructor, how could she be an ordinary character? Ayaka's eyes lit up with a ghostly blue light, and the woman's information then appeared in the eyes, 41,000. Ayaka was slightly surprised. She did not expect the woman's power level was so high. It was more than 5,000 higher than the original Master Parmakuka. It was true that people couldn't be judged by appearances, even the old man should not be underestimated. The woman looked at Ayaka with glowing blue eyes and slightly froze. She then smiled and said, "Are you Ayaka? Surely you are a genius person to have mastered several profound secret techniques." She then looked at the foolish Launch and Lancy and said, "These two children must be the ones who want to learn the instant transmission. Their ki is internalized, and they are not generalists. You can call me Grandma Vichy. I will teach you instant transmission for the next period of time. In advance, if you want to learn the secret technique of Planet Yardrat, relying on talent alone is not enough. No matter how high your strength is, if you want to learn instant transmission, you have to learn it seriously." Grandma Vichy said with a serious look. Launch and Lancy listened and nodded vigorously. Watching Grandma Vichy began to teach Launch and Lancy instant transmission skills, Ayaja stayed for a moment, then quietly left. Very far from the town on the plains, the vicinity was uninhabited. The weather was parched and hot, and there were dead old shrubs and cracked stone chips scattered everywhere. The vast and endless plains were like the throat of the devil, devouring the life around. Rumble. A huge roar came from the sky, and the ground immediately began to shake violently. Accompanied by a dazzling light in the distance, a black mushroom cloud rose. Boom! Before it stopped, there was another loud sound. The sound of explosions kept coming, followed by a violent and raging whirlwind. There was a fierce whirlwind wrapped in overflowing energy constantly destroying everywhere, changing the plain's landscape. The vibrations and explosions began to die down. The flying dust gradually fell, appearing in front of the eyes was the center of the plain. Starting from the center, winding distribution of the cracked horror rift. Each crack has a minimum of more than 2 meters wide and bottomless. The edge of the crack was molten liquid magma, and the pungent smell constantly emanated from it. In the center, a bare-chested man crouched on his knees. His hands were propped up on the ground, and beads of sweat dripped from his cheeks and undershirt. The big man sat to the side, slowly recovering his energy. A carnage scar on his face looks particularly horrible. This big man was responsible for teaching Ayaka. He was Pamikuka. Pamikuka was a rare and powerful warrior of planet Yardrat. 8 years ago, Pamikuka was already unfathomable. After 8 years of accumulation, Pamikuka's strength had become more and more powerful. After a long rest, Pamikuka felt that he had recovered his strength, so he stood up and continued to exercise. Pamikuka's great strength was inseparable from his diligent training. Pamikuka stood with fists clenched. His hands were placed on his waist, and he kept accumulating breath. Suddenly, a trace of consternation flashed across Pamikuka's face. His eyes condensed, and his whole body shook as he leapt into the air, and his body quickly flew into the sky. His eyes were sharply fixed in a direction. Just a moment ago, Pamikuka felt ki vast and majestic appear in a certain direction and was constantly approaching him. It was a powerful ki that he had never felt before. Pamikuka examined his surroundings vigilantly, paying attention to every movement around him. A light blue glow lit up in the distance, followed by a ki wave containing tremendous energy flying to and coming. Pamikuka hurriedly turned sideways and punched the ki wave, deflecting it in the other direction. Rumble. A big explosion rang out. Without bothering to dodge the gravel stirred up by the explosion behind him, a Saiyan figure had appeared in front of Pamikuka. The Saiyan figure swung her fist towards Pamikuka without saying a word. Pamikuka's face froze as he held his breath and dodged the man's attack. However, immediately after, the Saiyan figure's attack made him overwhelmed. Pamikuka's face changed. He did not expect the other side's strength to be so strong. The person attacked as fast as lightning, and the fist attack was powerful. Soon, Pamikuka felt powerless to resist. Withdraw. With that thought, Pamikuka wanted to quickly get out of the range of the opponent's attack. The powerful ki wave shone with dazzling brilliance and struck the opponent head-on. Boom! A loud explosion sounded. Pamikuka took the opportunity to accelerate, trying to pull the distance between the two sides. However, with a swoosh, Pamikuka stopped himself and was shocked to find the Saiyan figure had blocked in front of him at some point. What a strong strength! What kind of person is it? At this point, Pamikuka only properly surveyed the other side. He was shocked to find that the other side was actually a thin young girl. It's actually a wonderful young woman. This woman is so strong. I wonder what kind of god she is and what purpose she has in coming to planet Yardrat. Pamikuka knew that it was more difficult for a woman to train as a strong person than a man. That was why there were few strong women in the universe. He could not help but think about the other side's identity in his heart for a short time. His eyes gradually lit up with blue light. He wanted to know the woman's specific strength. Suddenly, Pamikuka's eyes widened in horror and trembled as the unsighted showed the other side's power level. The value was unbelievable to him. 285,000. Pamikuka sucked in a breath of cold air backwards, followed by the other side's words that made him feel even more skyward. Master Pamikuka, are you satisfied with my strength? The girl in green smiled sweetly. Likewise, her eyes lit up with a light blue glow, seeing that Pamikuka's power level had reached 57,000. Are you Ayaka? Pamikuka asked with a breath of disbelief. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to keep you updated for future uploads.